to say anything. After saying that, Zhao Kong said to Li, "Wife, come with me to the village chief's house." In the entire Xiaohe village, the person who knows Qinjia village best, apart from women like Li Ping who married into Qinjia village, is the village chief Li Chong. It will definitely not be a wrong decision to ask Li Chong about the situation. A quarter of an hour later, Zhao Kong and Li appeared in front of the house of village chief Li Chong. At this moment, Li Chong and Li Mu walked out of the house one after another. Seeing Zhao Kong and Li standing outside, they couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Old Zhao, why are you here?" "Village head." Zhao Kong smiled and responded, "I came to ask you something." Hearing this, Li Chong, who was about to wander over to the farmland of Qinjia village, stopped and said, "Then come in." After saying that, Li Chong welcomed the two into the house. After they sat down in the living room, Li Chong asked, "Old Zhao, what do you want to know?" "I want to find out something about Qinjia village." Zhao Kong said, "Just now, Xiaoping from Li Dayton's family came to our house." Zhao Kong then told him about Li Ping's visit to propose marriage. After listening, Li Chong and Li Mu looked at each other with some surprise. Li Ping came to propose marriage in person? Li Mu looked at Zhao Kong and asked. "Yes." Zhao Kong nodded. "I don't know much about the situation in Qinjia village, and I'm a little unsure, so I thought of asking the village chief." "Brother Zhao, you've got a great opportunity." Li Mu laughed and said, "Qinjia village is extremely wealthy nowadays. Every household has enough white flour and steam buns to eat every day. If your daughter marries there, she will definitely enjoy a good life." As soon as these words were spoken, Zhao Kong and Li couldn't help but look at each other. They seriously suspected that Li Mu was joking. Isn't it pure nonsense to say that one can be full with white flour buns every meal? "Brother Mu." Zhao Kong scratched his head and said, "Don't try to make fun of me. Qinjia village is as poor as ours. How can they live such a good life?" It's not that Zhao Kong didn't trust Li Mu, but what Li Mu said was too absurd. In this year, every household couldn't even get enough sorghum flour and bran flour. So how could they be full with white flour buns every meal? "I'm looking for your pleasure." Li Mu's eyes widened as he said, "If you don't believe me, go to Qinjia village and see for yourself. I saw with my own eyes that people in Qinjia village are fed with steamed buns every day. How could it be false?" Seeing Li Mu's confident look, Zhao Kong and Li Shi became even more suspicious, and they couldn't help but look at Li Chong. Facing the two men's gazes, Li Chong smiled and said, "Old Zhao, your understanding of Qinjia village is all outdated. Nowadays, every household in Qinjia village has enough steam buns to eat, and their lives are much better than ours." Upon hearing this, Zhao Kong and Li couldn't help but widen their eyes, and they could see the shock in each other's pupils. It turned out that what Feng Xiang said before was not a lie to facilitate the marriage. In Qinjia village, every household could indeed have enough food to eat. "Brother Zhao." Li Mu noticed the dazed expressions on their faces and asked, "You're not rejecting this marriage, are you?" "No." Zhao Kong quickly shook his head. "I just wanted to think about it. I didn't refuse." "It's a good thing you didn't refuse." Li Mu said, "If you refuse, it will be difficult for your daughter to marry into a good family again." Li Mu, who knew a lot about Qinjia village, knew very well that it was definitely a great blessing for Zhao Kang's daughter to marry into Qinjia village. Once this opportunity was missed, it would be difficult to find such a good family in the future. "That's right," Li Chong suddenly asked. "Did Li Ping tell me which family wants to marry you and your daughter?" "They are three men from Qinjia village, named Chen Cheng, Chen Shi, and Chen Mu." Zhao Kong had a good memory and immediately called out the names of the three people. Chen Cheng. Li Chong and Li Mu were stunned when they heard the name. Zhao Kong didn't know who Chen Cheng was, but they both knew him very well. Chen Cheng was Chun Dao's bodyguard and had a very good relationship with Chun Dao. Of course, this is not the most important thing. The most important thing is, yesterday when Li Chong and Li Mu went to Qinjia village, they happened to see Chun Dao distributing money to the villagers. They heard the villagers' discussions and knew that Chun Cheng was the person who received the most money in the entire Qinjia village, having received a full 4 taels of silver in one go. Chapter 161, Chun Dao's Die-Hard Fan. What is the concept of 4 taels of silver? In peaceful years, 4 taels of silver were enough for a family to live a prosperous life for 2 or 3 years. But in today's disaster years, although silver can buy less food, its preciousness is greater than before. After the cold disaster swept through the country, The people could no longer grow crops in their fields and had completely lost their source of income. In this situation, every copper coin was extremely important to the people, and they would rather break it into two halves to spend, let alone silver. Old Zhao. Li Chang stared into Zhao Kang's eyes and said seriously, "You must agree to this marriage." Why? Zhao Kang was a little puzzled as to why Li Chang and Li Mu reacted so strongly when he just said the name Chen Cheng. Do you know who Chen Cheng is? I don't know. Chen Cheng is Chen Dao's bodyguard. Li Chang said slowly, "Of course, this is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that he can earn 2 taels of silver every month." 2 taels of silver. Zhao Kang and Li's pupil shrank. 2 taels of silver was just the money for a meal for a person like Li Ying, but for Zhao Kang and Li who live in Xiao village, it was a huge fortune, so huge that they didn't know how to spend it. Can Chen Cheng really earn so much money? Li swallowed and asked in disbelief. Of course it's true. Li Miyunit replied, "Chen Cheng is Dao Heresh bodyguard. By the way, do you know Dao?" "I don't know." Li and Zhao Kang shook their heads. Seeing this, Li Mu explained to the two of them, "Dao Guer is Li Ping's son. He's a capable man, and his family is very wealthy. Not only does he provide the villagers of Qinjiao village with steamed buns every day, but his family lives a life as comfortable as a god. Dao Guer doesn't even like to eat steamed buns. He has to have eggs or chicken for every meal." At this time, Li Mu was like a die-hard fan of Chen Dao, praising Chen Dao with all his might. Zhao Kang and the other man were completely confused. They had never expected that Li Ping, who had just come to propose marriage, had such an identity and was actually the richest person in the entire Qinjiao village. "Old Zhao, you too." Li Chang shook his head. "Li Ping came to your house in person, and you didn't even entertain her properly, and even said you needed to think it over." Li Qiang siga sufli. Although Li Ping always dressed like a peasant woman, her status in Qinjiao village was now higher than that of the village chief. Such a person came to propose marriage in person, and Zhao Kang actually had to think twice. He even suspected Li Ping of deceiving him. But this cannot be blamed on Zhao Kang. It can only be said that he knows too little about Qinjiao village. "How would I know this?" Zhao Kang said embarrassedly. "I just regarded him as a matchmaker." After saying that, Zhao Kang continued, "I will go to Li Ping tomorrow and agree to this marriage." After listening to Li Chang and Li Mu's description of Qinjiao village, Zhao Kang and Li were determined to accept the marriage. Life in Qinjiao village was so good, and Chen Cheng could earn so much money. If they didn't agree to this marriage, they would be fools. "That's good." Li Chang smiled and nodded, then asked, "You just said that Li Ping wanted to find wives for all 3 brothers of Chen Cheng's family?" "Right." Zhao Kang nodded, then realized something and frowned. "We only have 2 daughters. What's missing?" "That's not a problem." Li Chang smiled and looked at Li Mu, saying, "Brother Mu, go find your aunt later and tell her about this matter. See if she is willing to marry her daughter to Qinjiao village." Li Mu's aunt, Li Chang's sister Li Qian, also had a daughter who was about to get married. It was just right for her to marry into Qinjiao village together, giving Chen Cheng and his 2 brothers 3 wives in total. As for whether Li Qian would agree, Li Chang felt that she would definitely agree. Qinjiao village had such a good life, and unless Li Qian was a fool, she would definitely be willing to marry her daughter there. "I'll be there right away." Li Mu's eyes lit up. It would definitely be a great thing for his family if his cousin could marry into Chen Cheng's family. So, Li Mu took action immediately, ignoring the 2 guests in the house, and went straight to his aunt's house. At the same time, Zhao Kang and Li also said goodbye to Li Chang and returned to their homes. Zhao Xiaoyan and Zhao Xiaomei sat in the living room, looking at Zhao Kang and Li who had returned. Although they didn't say anything, the expressions on their faces revealed what they were thinking. It is impossible for the two to say that they don't care about their marriage. They're just limited by the modesty of being daughters and are embarrassed to show too much eagerness. "Xiaoyan, Xiaomei." Zhao Kang returned to the house and sat down and said to his 2 daughters, "I plan to marry you both to Qin village." As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions on Zhao Xiaoyan and Zhao Xiaomei's faces became extremely complicated. They were filled with joy and nervousness about getting married, as well as anxiety about facing the unknown. In short, the emotions in their hearts were difficult to fully express in words. "Xiaoyan." Li gently stroked her eldest daughter Zhao Xiaoyan's hair and said with a smile, "Your father and I have already asked the village chief. Life in Qinjiao village is very good. Every household can eat white flour buns. You will definitely live a good life if you marry there. You won't have to go hungry with your father and me in the future. Although Zhao Kang's family was not yet without food, they were still hungry for 2 meals every 3 days. Under such circumstances, it was definitely a great thing for his 2 daughters to marry into Qinjia village, where they had white flour buns to eat every day. Mother, Zhao Xiaomei asked in surprise, how could Qinjia village be so wealthy? Can they eat white flour buns every day? While speaking, Zhao Xiaomei couldn't help licking her lips, and she felt a pang of hunger in her stomach. She had never eaten steamed buns before, but since they were called white flour steamed buns, they must be made of white flour. And the taste of white flour, Zhao Xiaomei hasn't tasted it for a long time. I heard this from the village chief. Li smiled and told Li Chong what she had learned at his home. After hearing this, Zhao Xiaoyan and Zhao Xiaomei were both shocked. Eating steamed buns every day was enough to fill their stomachs. Could it be that every household in Qinjia village was a wealthy landlord? Their lives were truly good. What shocked the 2 women even more than the lives of the villagers in Qinjia village was Chun Cheng's income. Earn 2 taels of silver a month. It's no exaggeration to say that Zhao Xiaoyan and Zhao Xiaomei have lived for 20 years and have never seen anyone with such a high income. The 2 couldn't help but think, if you earn 2 taels of silver a month, you can't spend it all even if you eat white rice every meal, right? Yes, eating white rice every meal is the limit of Zhao Xiaoyan and Zhao Xiaomei's imagination. As for the delicious fish and meat and the delicacies from land and sea, this may be something they will only understand many years later. Chapter 162. More Than Just. Mother, Zhao Xiaoyan and Zhao Xiaomei said in unison, if we marry into that family, will we really be able to eat steamed buns every day? That's more than that. Seeing her 2 daughters' performance, Li smiled and said, Chen Cheng can earn 2 taels of silver a month. He will definitely treat you well if you marry into his family. By then, not only will you have white flour buns every day, you might even be able to eat meat every other day. Slurp. The 2 women couldn't help but swallow their saliva and felt even hungrier. At this moment, the 2 of them had no resistance to marrying into Qinjia village, and the only thing left in their minds was the taste of white flour buns and meat. Chen Dao's home. Not long after Li Ping left, Chen Go came over. Brother Go, why are you here? Chen Dao, who had just returned from sending Chun Fei to school, welcomed Chen Go into the house and asked. At the same time, Chen Dao went to the kitchen and brought out a bowl of noodles and placed it in front of Chen Go. Brother Go, you haven't had breakfast yet, right? Have a bowl of noodles first. Chen Dao had a good impression of Chen Go, a kid slightly older than himself, so he didn't mind treating him to a meal. Thank you, Brother Dao. Chen Go hurriedly thanked him and looked at the noodles that Chen Dao mentioned. He saw that the bowl contained thin, flat strips that were snow white in color. They must be made of white flour. In addition, there were some egg flowers floating in the soup in the bowl, which made Chen Go swallow his saliva. Chen Go didn't hesitate and directly picked up the bowl and took a sip of the soup. As the hot soup entered his mouth, Chen Go's eyes narrowed unconsciously. It was definitely a blessing to be able to drink hot soup in such a cold day. Moreover, the soup was quite salty. Although salt was a necessity in life, its price was not low. Therefore, most people put relatively little salt in cooking. As a result, most of the food was extremely light. At this moment, when Chen Go suddenly drank this salty soup, he felt very satisfied. Brother Dao, I'll finish eating first. Chen Go couldn't wait to pick up the chopsticks, picked up the noodles in the bowl, and ate them with slurps. Soon, Chen Go finished all the noodles, not even leaving a drop of soup in the bowl. Thank you, Brother Dao. After finishing all the noodles, Chen Go thanked him again with a satisfied look on his face. The food in Chen Dao's house was much better than his. Compared with his bowl of noodle soup with meat, egg drop, and full of salt, the food in his house was almost like pig food. Chen Dao waved his hand, indicating that there was no need to thank him, and then said, Brother Go, what's the matter with you coming to see me? Hearing this, Chen Go immediately sat up straight, sorted out some thoughts, and said, Brother Dao, I want to do business with you. After saying this, Chen Dao was startled. He looked at Chen Go, who was sitting opposite him, and asked, What kind of business are you planning to do with me? I want to do business with white-feathered and yellow-feathered chickens. Chen Go said, Same as Wuhan. The breeding of white-feathered chickens is mainly done by chunologically, one should go to Chunda to discuss the business of white-feathered chickens. But Shingo knows clearly that no matter whether it is white-feathered chickens or yellow-feathered chickens, their sales are decided by Chundao, so he simply found Chundao directly. Hearing this, Chundao looked at Chungo deeply. He did not say that the villagers of Chunjia village could come to him to do business, nor did he say that it was not allowed. However, as far as Chundao's inner thoughts were concerned, he hoped that the people around him or the villagers of Chunjia village could produce some business talents. Otherwise, Chundao would not have sent Li Dabing and Li Feng to study with Wu Han, let alone let the children go to school for free. But Chundao never expected that the first person to set his sights on the white-feathered and yellow-feathered chicken business was not an adult in the village, but a young boy named Chun Go. "Brother Go, how are you going to do business with white-feathered and yellow-feathered chickens?" Chundao asked. Chun Go had clearly made a detailed plan and replied directly, "I've already roped in 10 families in the village and have gathered enough capital and guards. As long as you're willing to sell us chickens, we can immediately transport them to the city and sell them. After we earn some money, we can bring back some supplies that the villagers need. That way, we can earn double the money." Chundao couldn't help but nodded. Chungo's idea was undoubtedly correct. Business these days was far less complicated than in China in the past. As long as Chungo could transport the white-feathered chickens and yellow-feathered chickens to the city, he would definitely have no trouble selling them. Of course, this is also because yellow-feathered chickens and white-feathered chickens are chicken breeds that can only be produced in Xinjia village, and there are no competitors at all. "I agree to this." After thinking for a moment, Chundao nodded and said, "Brother Go, you can come to me anytime to buy yellow-feathered chickens." As the number of yellow-feathered chickens in the family increased, the number of yellow-feathered chickens that grew old and no longer laid eggs was also increasing. Chundao had long thought about selling these old yellow-feathered chickens. Since Chungo wanted to do business in yellow-feathered chickens, Chundao naturally had no reason to refuse. "As for the white-feathered chicken, I'll tell the uncle about it for you." "Very good." Chungo cheered in his heart and said gratefully, "Thank you, Brother Dao. I'll go back and prepare now." Not long after, Chungo hurriedly left Chundao's house and went to the homes of other partners to tell them the good news, while Chundao returned to the backyard to take care of the chickens and ducks. Taiping County, outside the North Gate. Zhang He stood beside the 2 soldiers guarding the city, looking at the refugees outside the city, and sighed in his heart. After eliminating the Zhu family, the county magistrate took out a small amount of food and distributed porridge outside the city every day. This made the lives of the refugees outside the city a little better, but the improvement was ultimately limited. Cold and hunger still surrounded them, and people died of starvation and freezing outside the city almost every day. Zhang He, who was once a refugee, could understand the suffering of these refugees, but he was powerless to do anything. All he could do was try his best to prevent the soldiers defending the city from bullying these refugees and to ensure they had enough food and a place to shelter from the wind and rain. This is something that even the county magistrate cannot do, let alone Zhang He. Who are those people? But at this moment, a shout from the city guards interrupted Zhang He's thoughts. Zhang He followed the soldier's gaze and saw a group of people slowly coming towards the city gate. Clang! The 2 soldiers guarding the city drew their swords without a second thought and pointed their swords at the large crowd approaching slowly from the opposite side with serious expressions. There was no way. The number of people on the opposite side was too large, more than 100 of them. It was hard not to suspect that they had other intentions towards the county. As the 2 soldiers drew their swords, the crowd on the opposite side also stopped. Chunda stared at the soldiers defending the city who were on high alert and frowned slightly. Chapter 163 Salary? Chunda frowned, not knowing why the 2 soldiers guarding the city drew their swords and fought each other, while the villagers of Xinjia village behind Chunda were shocked. "What's going on? Why is this soldier drawing his sword against us? You don't think we're gangsters, do you? Can we get into the city?" Many villagers showed fear on their faces. Most ordinary people these days were afraid of the army, so when they saw the 2 soldiers drawing their swords, many villagers wanted to retreat. "Put the knife down." As the 2 sides stared at each other, Zhang He pressed down the knife of the soldier beside him and said to the soldier with a puzzled look on his face, "Don't worry, they are not thieves." As he spoke, Zhang He walked towards Chunda with a smile and said, "Brother Chin, long time no see." Zhang, he has a very good memory. Having been to Xinjia village once, he recognized Chunda at a glance. "Who are you?" Chunda looked at Zhang He, and after a brief recollection, his eyes lit up. "Are you the Zhang He who came to our village with the county lord last time?" "It's me." Zhang He smiled and nodded, then raised his eyebrows in the direction of the villagers behind Chunda and said, "Brother Chun, are these all villagers from your Chinjia village?" "Yes," Chunda replied. "They're all here to buy things in the city, not thieves." At this time, Chunda had already realized why the two soldiers guarding the city drew their swords against each other. If he were a soldier guarding the city and saw a large group of people coming, he would also suspect that these people were thieves who were coming to attack the county town. Fortunately, Zhang He was there, otherwise it would have been difficult for them to enter the city today. "Are you all here to buy things?" Zhang He's eyes widened, somewhat in disbelief. Looking around, he saw that there were no fewer than 100 villagers behind Chunda, both men and women. These hundreds of people were heading to the county town to buy supplies. How much stuff does this have to buy? Are the villagers in Chinjia village so rich? Yes. Chunda nodded and said, "Our village received their salary yesterday, so the villagers wanted to come to the city to buy some things to take back." Salary. Zhang He's eyes widened even more. Although he was not well educated, he still understood the meaning of the word salary. This word has a similar meaning to remuneration, stipend, and remuneration. But it was precisely because he knew the meaning of salary that Zhang He was particularly shocked. The villagers of Chinjia village are just farmers who make a living from the land. Where do they get their salaries? "Brother Zhang He, can we enter the city?" Chindazi didn't know what Zhang He was thinking, so he just asked. "Sure." Zhang He nodded without hesitation. Even if it was just for Chun Dao's sake, he couldn't refuse the villagers of Chinjia village from entering the city. Not to mention, he also wanted to establish good relationships with the villagers of Chinjia village so that he could do business in Chinjia village in the future. So, Zhang He signaled the two soldiers guarding the city to put away their weapons, and personally led Chunda and others into the county town. "It's so lively." The villagers who entered the city couldn't help but sigh that the bustling pedestrians and the neatly arranged and beautiful buildings in the county town were incomparable to Chinjia village. Chun Lien stood on the stone-paved road, a look of confusion flashing across her face. This is the stress response of humans, as social animals, when faced with unfamiliar environments. For Chun Lien, whether it was the respectable pedestrians, the vendors on both sides of the street, or the dazzling array of shops, they were all scenes she had never seen in her 18 years of life. Not only Chun Lien, many villagers who came to the county town for the first time couldn't help but exclaim in admiration, praising the prosperity of the county town. "Brother Chun." At this time, Zhang He said to Chunda, "What do you need to buy? Do you need my help?" "No." Chunda thought for a moment and said, "We're just here to buy some food, salt, cloth, and other things. There is no need to trouble you." Chunda had already noticed the uniform of a constable that Zhang He was wearing. Taking a constable to buy things was somewhat inappropriate. After all, ordinary people were still a little afraid of constables these days. "All right." Zhang He didn't force it, but just said, "I'm here at the city gate. If you need help, you can come to me anytime." After saying that, Zhang He returned to the city gate and left this place to the people of Chinjia village. After Zhang He left, Chunda looked at everyone and said, "From here, go east to the east market and go west to the west market. You can buy food, cloth, and salt in both markets. Everyone, go shopping separately and gather here before 3 p.m. As soon as Chunda finished speaking, the villagers immediately took action. Villagers who had never been to the city followed the villagers who had been to the city and went to the east and west markets to buy supplies. Chun Lien followed Wu Yun and other women to a cloth shop in the east market. When the shop assistant saw a group of women coming in, he hurried forward and said, "Dear guests, please come in." As he extended his hand to welcome Chun Lien and the others into the store, the clerk began to introduce the fabrics in the store to everyone. "The fabrics in our store are all top-quality fabrics, with reasonable prices and no deception." The clerk pointed to a piece of linen and said, "This is the cheapest linen we have in our shop. It only costs 1 penny apiece." The waiter was obviously a man of good judgment. He knew that Chun Lien and her group would not buy high-end fabrics such as silk, so he only introduced linen. In fact, Wu Yun, Chun Lien, and others have always been looking at linen. They are not Chun Dao and will not be so extravagant as to buy fabrics like cotton. Linen is enough for them. 1 penny a horse. Wu Yun said, "Isn't it too expensive? That's already pretty cheap." The clerk hurriedly said, One piece of linen can be made into at least 10 pieces of clothing, enough for each person in the family to buy 2 new sets of clothes. No, no. Wu Yun still shook her head. It's too expensive. I think 80 cents a piece is more appropriate. 81 is too little. Our store will lose money. It should be at least 95 won. We bought a lot, 80 coins apiece. If that doesn't work, we'll go to another shop and have a look. How much do you want to buy? Are 20 of us in total. We need to buy at least 20 rolls of linen. 20 horses? The waiter's eyes lit up and he said, if you buy 20 horses, I'll charge you 90 coins per horse. Just 80 cents, we don't want more. Well, after some bargaining, the price of a piece of cloth was finally settled at 80 coins. When paying the bill, the owner and the clerk of the cloth shop looked a little painful, but they were very happy in their hearts. At the price of 80 won per piece, the cloth shop can still make a profit. Although the profit is a little less, the quantity is large, so the profit is also less. Chapter 164, A Breath of Pleasure. Afternoon. The villagers of Qinjia village returned to the city gate one by one and gathered. Each of them was carrying large and small bags, with joy on their faces. Widow Wu, what did you buy? An elderly man asked Wu Yun with a smile. Wu Yun rolled her eyes at the man, but didn't mind his address. She replied, I bought some cloth and some pork, and I'm going back to give it to my child. I bought some meat, too. Another young man lifted the cloth bag in his hand and licked the corner of his mouth. I haven't eaten meat in a long time. I'll have a meal tonight. Everyone laughed, and the air was filled with joy. For these villagers, today was definitely a better day than Chinese New Year. Not only could they wear new clothes, but they could also eat meat. This kind of life was truly satisfying. All right. At this time, Chunda shouted, Stop talking, let's get out of the city. After saying that, Chun Dabian got on the donkey cart and drove out of the city. When he left the city gate, he saw Zhang, he standing at the city gate. Brother Chun, are you going back to the village now? Yes. Chunda waved toward Zhang He and said, See you next time, Brother Zhang. Looking at Chunda, who slowly disappeared from his sight, Zhang He retracted his gaze and fell into deep thought. This Qinjia village was becoming increasingly incomprehensible to him. Not only were there all sorts of amazing chicken breeds, but even the villagers were so wealthy. It's really incomprehensible. Qinjia village entrance. Many villagers who returned from the farmland did not rush to Chen Dao's house for dinner, but stood at the entrance of the village, looking in the direction of the official road. Why haven't Chunda and the others come back yet? Don't worry, nothing will happen. Maybe shopping delayed you for some time. The crowd gathered at the entrance of the village were mostly women and children. As for the men and their families, they followed Chunda into the city to buy supplies, so they couldn't help but feel a little worried. Here it comes. But at this moment, a child shouted loudly, and everyone looked towards the official road, only to see a donkey cart slowly appear in everyone's sight. Behind the donkey cart were other villagers from Qinjia village. Chunda and the others are back. The women all had happy expressions on their faces. Soon, the donkey cart stopped at the entrance of the village. Everyone immediately went forward, found their families, and asked them about the supplies they had purchased. Boss, what did you buy? A woman asked her husband. I bought quite a few. The husband replied with a smile. I bought a piece of cloth, a pound of salt, and 2 pounds of pork. Okay. A joyful smile appeared on the woman's dark face. The other villagers who asked their family members also got the answers they wanted, and they all became excited. The whole village entrance was as if it was New Year's Day, and everyone had a happy smile on their face. Not long after, the villagers returned to the village and went to Chun Dao's house for dinner. Brother Dao, a young man standing in line to receive steamed buns, looked at Chun Dao, standing beside him, and asked, Can I take the buns home? In order to prevent the villagers from taking the steamed buns home and storing them, Chun Dao specifically required the villagers to eat them nearby when providing them with meals. This was an established rule, and the villagers were willing to abide by it. After all, it was good enough that Chun Dao was willing to give them food, and they didn't dare to expect too much. However, at this time a young man suddenly asked to take the steamed buns back to eat, which made Chen Dao very puzzled. And it's not just the young and strong man. Chen Dao noticed that when the young and strong man was speaking, many villagers also looked at him, obviously having the same idea. Why do you want to take it home to eat? Chen Dao couldn't help but ask. The young man scratched his head and said a little embarrassedly, I bought some meat at home today, and I thought of taking the steamed buns back to eat with the meat. I see. Chun Dao suddenly realized that the villagers did not want to break the rules. Instead, after receiving their wages, most families bought meat and wanted to take the steamed buns back home as a staple food to eat with the meat. This is just the first time, and it won't happen again. Chun Dao thought about it and agreed to the villagers' request. The villagers had finally bought meat and wanted to celebrate. If he didn't agree, it would be too unkind. Brother Dao is so generous. I told you Dao Gur would definitely agree. Brother Dao is still good to us. That's right. Brother Dao has been really nice to us. The villagers immediately cheered and kept praising Chun Dao. Chun Dao looked at the excited villagers and smiled. Seeing the villagers so happy, he felt an inexplicable sense of accomplishment. Soon, the villagers who received the steamed buns dispersed and rushed back home to cook. Chun Lian also returned to her home with 5 steamed buns. Waves of meaty aroma wafted from the kitchen. Chun Lian walked into the kitchen holding steamed buns and saw He Shuehua busy in the kitchen. Grandmother. Chun Lian smiled and said, I brought the steamed buns back. Did Brother Dao agree? He Shuehua asked with some surprise. I agree. Chun Lian replied, but Dao Gur said that this time is an exception, and it can't be done this way next time. That's good. He Shuehua nodded, used a spatula to scoop out the roasted pork from the pot, and placed it on a plate. This was the 2 pounds of pork that Chun Lian specially bought from the county town. Due to limited financial resources at home, He Shuehua couldn't cook anything fancy. She just put the pork in the pot, added some salt, stir-fried it, and served it. Chun Lian looked closely and saw that the pork on the plate was shiny with oil and white with yellow. If this kind of fried meat was placed in Chun Dao's previous life in China, most people would probably find it difficult to swallow it. However, Chun Lian's reaction was, I swallowed, and my stomach started to growl even more. Compared with the meat of poultry, such as chicken and duck, pork is undoubtedly more popular among ordinary people, because the meals of ordinary people often lack fat, while pork is rich in fat. The aroma of fat alone is enough to make ordinary people salivate. He Shuehua placed the plate of pork on the table and said with a smile, Our lives are getting better and better. There was a time when the family could not even get enough bran to eat, but in just 1 month, not only was there no worry about food and drink, but they could even eat pork. The change in living conditions was visible to the naked eye. And the one who brought about all these changes was Chun Dao. It was Chun Dao who provided the whole village with enough food to eat, and it was also Chun Dao who allowed the whole village to live a life where they could eat meat. At this moment, He Shuehua was extremely grateful to Chun Dao and kept thinking about Chun Dao's kindness in her heart. Chapter 165, It Smells So Good. Yes. A trance flashed in Chun Lian's eyes. Once upon a time, her family could not even get enough bran to eat. Every day, they could only hide in the house, covered with a tattered quilt to minimize consumption. Now, she and her grandmother can eat white flour buns every day and occasionally have meat. Their living standards have greatly improved. And all this was brought by Chun Dao. Thank you, Brother Dao. Chun Lian thanked him in her heart while picking up a piece of pork and putting it into He Shuehua's bowl. Grandma, try some pork. Good. He Shuehua squinted her eyes and smiled, then put the pork into her mouth and chewed it. As soon as the pork entered her mouth, the rich aroma of fat filled her mouth. As He Shuehua took a bite, more fat burst in her mouth. The unique aroma of animal fat made He Shuehua nod involuntarily. On the other side, Chun Lian also picked up a piece of pork and chewed it with her eyes slightly narrowed. When buying pork, Chun Lian deliberately chose the parts with more fat, that is, pork with alternating fat and lean meat. In Chun Dao's previous life in China, I'm afraid that few people except the older generation could eat this kind of greasy pork. But in Chun Lian's opinion, fatty meat is much more delicious than lean meat. Chun Lian didn't feel sick at all about the rich aroma of oil. Instead, she found it extremely delicious. Grandma, this pork is so delicious. Chun Lian exclaimed in admiration. He Shuehua couldn't help but nod in agreement and asked curiously, Xiao Yin, what did you do in the city today? Speaking of this, Chun Lian became excited and talked nonstop. Grandma, let me tell you, the city is very lively. It feels like there are people everywhere, and it's very big. Aunt Wu and I walked around for a long time and couldn't even finish visiting the East Market. The two of them ate greasy pork while talking about Chun Lian's move to the city. The atmosphere was quite relaxed. At the same time, many households in Xinjia village were eating meat with steamed buns, with satisfied smiles on their faces. The moon sets and the sun rises. The next day, as the sky began to lighten, Li Chang and Li Mu, who had woken up early, also walked out of their home. Good morning, village chief. Outside the gate of Li Chang's house, Zhao Kong and Li were already waiting outside. In addition to the two of them, there were also Li Chang's sister Li Qian and her husband Wang Yuan. Yesterday, after Li Mu went to Li Shi's home and informed her of the situation, Li Shi made the decision to marry her daughter to Qinjia village without any hesitation. But before that, Li Qian planned to go to Qinjia village first to understand the situation. After all, based on what Li Mu said, it was difficult for Li Qian to fully believe that Qinjia village was really that good. Are you all here? Then let's go. Li Chang waved his hand and led everyone towards a farmland, intending to cross the farmland to reach Qinjia village. Big brother, Li Qian, walking on the street, couldn't help but ask, can every household in Qinjia village really eat white flour buns? How can I lie to you? Li Chang, who happened to be walking to the horizon, pointed to the lush greenery in the distance and said, that Qindao from Qinjia village is a very capable man. He can grow food in this cold winter. The people in Qinjia village are living a very good life. Li Qian and others followed the direction of Li Chang's finger and saw the dots of green in the farmland. This, Li Shi's husband Wang Yuan opened his mouth and his pupils contracted. Zhao Kong, Li, and Li Qian also had dazed expressions, their heads feeling a little confused. In such cold weather, a large number of green crops grew in the farmland of Qinjia village, which really went against their understanding of farming. Hey. Looking at the confused people, Li Mu couldn't help but laugh secretly, thinking it was very interesting. Because Li Mu had the same reaction when he first saw the wheat planted in Qinjia village sprout. Big brother. Li Qian stared at the wheat in the field and subconsciously asked, how did Qinjia village do it? Although Li Qian is the sister of the village chief of Xiaoa village, it does not mean that she does not need a farm. In fact, the entire Xiaoa village, including Li Chang, are experienced farmers who are very knowledgeable about farming. It is precisely because of this understanding that Li Qian seems particularly shocked at this moment. In such cold weather, even cold-resistant winter wheat cannot be grown. How does Qinjia village manage to grow wheat in such weather? I don't know either. Li Chang shook his head and said, I only know that this is a grain seed made from the old rice in Qinjia village. After saying this, Li Chang couldn't help but sigh. What a pity. There aren't many of these grains. Otherwise, maybe we could grow them in our village. Woof, woof, woof. Just when Li Chang was feeling regretful, two huge dogs appeared in front of everyone from afar, staring at them with vigilant eyes, as if they were ready to attack at any time. Da Huang and Huang. Li Chang smiled and waved at the two dogs. Having been to Qinjia village many times, he was no longer so afraid of the two dogs. He knew very well that as long as he did not steal or destroy farmland, Da Huang and Huang would not attack. As for the grinning expressions of Da Huang and Huang at this time, it was probably because they brought strangers such as Li Qian and Zhao Kong with them. Auntie, don't be afraid. Seeing Li Qian's fearful expression, Li Mu smiled and reassured her. These are Da Huang and Huang, the two guarding the farmland in Qinjia village. As long as we don't have any bad intentions, they won't attack us. Hearing this, Li Qian and Mrs. Li immediately breathed a sigh of relief. These two dogs were really too big and looked a bit scary. Woof, woof, woof. Da Huang started shouting at Li Chang and tilted his head towards Li Qian and others, as if asking who this person was. Seeing this, Li Chang hurriedly explained, these are people from our Xiaoa village. They are going to Qinjia village to do some business. They will not destroy the farmland. Hearing this, Da Huang nodded very humanely, and together with Huang, he made way for Li Chang and others, indicating that they could pass. This dog can actually understand human language. Li Qian, who was following behind Li Chang, couldn't help but exclaim in surprise that these two dogs were too smart. At that moment, she almost thought that Li Chang was talking to a person. These two dogs are not simple. Li Chang lowered his voice and said, I heard from Chun He, the village chief of Qinjia village, that these two dogs are equivalent to 8th grade warriors. If you encounter them in the future, don't provoke them. 8th rank warrior? Li Qian, Wang Yuan, Zhao Kong, and Li were all shocked. They didn't know what the 8th rank meant, but they had heard of it a little bit about warriors. Even Xiaoa village, which is far away from the county town, knows something about warriors. Chapter 166 Too Different. In the eyes of the common people at the bottom, warriors are high and mighty figures who can only be trained by the wealthy families in the city. However, these two dogs, Da Huang and Er Huang, are equivalent to warriors. This made Li Qian and the others feel a sense of absurdity. The high-ranking warriors were actually no more than two dogs. At this moment, Li Qian and the others were even more confused. The fact that Xinjia village could grow crops in the cold winter season was enough to make them confused. However, there was a dog equivalent to an 8th grade warrior guarding the farmland, which caused Li Qian and the others to have endless doubts. After passing through the farmland area of Xinjia village, Li Chong and others entered Xinjia village. After walking for a while, they appeared not far from Qindao's house. It's so lively. Looking at the large number of villagers gathered outside Qindao's house, Zhao Kong couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. The appearance of Qinjiao village is very different from that of Xiao village. The doors of every household in Xiao village were closed, and almost everyone was hiding at home to avoid the cold wind. The village gave people a deserted feeling. In contrast, in Qinjiao village, a large number of villagers gathered here. Not only was it very popular, but everyone also had a smile on their face, making it feel particularly lively at first glance. Bai Qiyang. At this moment, Chen He, who was standing in front of Chen Dao's house, noticed Li Chong and the others coming and quickly walked over to ask, "Why are you here?" As he spoke, Li Chong glanced at Li Qian and the others, a look of doubt appearing on his face. Among the people brought by Li Chong, Chen He only knew Li Mu. As for Li Qian, Zhao Kong, and others, he had never seen them before, but he could probably guess that they were also from Xiao village. Village Chief Chen. Li Chong didn't care about Chen He's nickname, Guarded Chong. Instead, he said with a smile, "I came here to discuss a marriage." "Marriage?" Chen He couldn't help but frown and asked, "What marriage?" "You do not know?" Li Chong was a little surprised, but he still explained. "Yesterday, Xiaoping came to our village to act as a matchmaker, hoping to find a wife for the 3 Chuncheng brothers in your village. We came here today to discuss this matter. To be a matchmaker for Chuncheng and the others?" Chen He was startled at first. Then he said with envy, "Bald Chong, you are so lucky." Chen He's words were not a polite remark, but a sincere envy. When Chen Dao distributed silver 2 days ago, many people saw with their own eyes that Chen Cheng received 4 taels of silver. Now everyone in Qinjiao village knows that Chen Cheng is a popular figure around Qindao and the one who earns the most money. He can earn at least 2 taels of silver a month. Even though Chen Cheng's family still lives in a shabby house, the villagers of Qinjiao village all know that as long as Chen Cheng, a person valued by Qindao, is in the Chen family, they will be able to live a prosperous life sooner or later. Therefore, when Chen He heard that a girl from Xiao village was going to marry Chen Cheng, he couldn't help but feel envious. It was because he didn't have a daughter, and because they had the same surname, Chen, he had some blood relationship with Chen Cheng. Otherwise, he would have wanted to marry his daughter to Chen Cheng. "I'm so unlucky. She's not my daughter he's marrying." Speaking of this, Li Chong was also full of complaints. Didn't he also want to become a relative of Chen Cheng? Unfortunately, he has no daughter, so he can only watch such a good thing fall on his sister. After a few complaints in his heart, Li Chong pointed at Li Qian and Zhao Kong and said, "This is my sister and her husband, and this is Zhao Kong and his wife from my village. They plan to marry their daughter to your Qinjiao village." Village Chief Chen, Zhao Kong, Li Qian, and others hurried forward to greet them. Chen He glanced at them and said, "Since you're here to discuss marriage, then follow me. I'll take you to see Li Ping." After saying that, Chen He walked into Chen Dao's house first. Li Chong and others followed closely behind him, looking at the villagers of Qinjiao village as they walked forward. The food in Qinjiao village is really good. Li looked at a villager holding a steamed bun and whispered in Zhao Kang's ear. Before, when Li Chong and Li Mu said that the villagers in Qinjiao village had enough steamed buns for every meal, he was a little skeptical, but now he completely believes it. Zhao Kong nodded instinctively, and the idea of marrying his daughter to Qinjiao village became stronger and stronger. If his daughter lived with them, she could only eat bran for every meal. Only if she married into Qinjiao village could she eat white flour buns for every meal. "Brother Dao." Chen He entered Chen Dao's front yard and came to Chen Dao. He smiled and said, "People from Xiao village are here to discuss the marriage." Discussing marriage? Chen Dao was startled, then immediately remembered his mother Li Ping's matchmaking trip to Xiao village yesterday. Chen Dao hadn't asked about this matter, but judging from Li Ping's expression when she returned yesterday, Chen Dao could probably guess that the matchmaking wasn't going well. But now it seemed, are there some errors in your guesses? Chen Dao looked at the people following Chun He and saw that in addition to Li Chong and Li Mu, whom he had met once, there were two couples. These two couples were about 40 years old and looked at Chun Dao with a somewhat restrained expression. That's Chun Dao. Li Qian glanced at Chun Dao out of the corner of her eye and couldn't help but sigh in her heart. What a spirited young man. Li Qian had heard too many legends about Chun Dao in the past 2 days, and everything she heard was praising Chun Dao. So when she heard Chun He calling Chun Dao's name, she couldn't help but pay more attention to Chun Dao. With this attention, Li Qian immediately realized that Chun Dao was different from other children. In Xiao Village, most children of Chun Dao's age are naughty and skinny, but Chun Dao is completely different. He has bright eyes and is very tall, 1.6 meters. He looks very mature and is completely different from those naughty and playful children. Sheng Yi. Chun Dao suddenly turned to look at Chun Cheng, who had been standing next to him, and said in a teasing tone, "Your father-in-law and mother-in-law are here. Why don't you go up and say hello?" Well, Chun Cheng scratched his head, a rare hint of shame showing on his face. He stood there blankly, not knowing what to say. Is this Chun Cheng? Li Qian, Zhao Kong, and others fixed their eyes on Chun Cheng and couldn't help but admire in their hearts. What a strong man. Chun Cheng was 1.8 meters tall and had a strong appearance, which was very different from any other man that people had ever seen. Not to mention anything else, just looking at his calf-like physique, you can tell that Chun Cheng must be a good worker. Have to. Looking at the silent Chun Cheng, Chun Dao couldn't help but shook his head and said, "Go call your mother over." As soon as these words were spoken, Chun Cheng immediately fled from this embarrassing scene like a flash and disappeared from everyone's sight. Then Chun Dao looked at Li Chong and the others and said, "Village Chief Li, please come in and sit down. I'll go call my mother." Chapter 167, Fairy-like Days. Not long after, Chun He, Li Chong, Li Qian, Zhao Kong, Wang Yuan, Li and others took their seats in the living room of Chen Dao's house. Li Ping also came to the living room from the kitchen. She first placed a few steamed buns in front of each person, then sat down next to Chen Dao and said, "Brother Kong, have you considered the marriage I mentioned yesterday?" Zhao Kong stared intently at the plump, white steamed buns beside him, swallowing his saliva as he nodded and said, "I've thought it over. I plan to marry Xiaoyan and Xiaomei to Qinjia village." Hearing this, Li Ping smiled. When she heard Zhao Kong say yesterday that he needed to think about it, she thought the marriage was off. She had planned to go to Xiao village again today to ask other families, but she didn't expect that after some consideration, Zhao Kong still agreed to the marriage. "My sister also plans to marry her daughter to Qinjia village." Seeing that Li Qian was embarrassed to speak, Li Chong hurriedly spoke. "Oh." Li Ping's smile grew wider. She hadn't expected to receive such an unexpected reward. "That's easy. All 3 brothers in Cheng'er's family can find wives." Upon hearing this, everyone laughed. Even Chun He was no exception. It had been a long time since there had been a daughter-in-law from outside marrying into Qinjia village. Having 3 of them marry in at once was definitely a big happy event that deserved the joy of the whole village. At this moment, Li Qian suddenly said, "Sister Ping, should my daughter marry Chen Cheng or his younger brother?" This is the issue that Li Qian cares about most. In her opinion, it would be best if her daughter Li Li could marry Chen Cheng, because Chun Cheng is her most ideal candidate for son-in-law. As for Chun Shi and Chun Mu, although they were also villagers of Qinjia village and lived a good life, their income was far less than that of Chun Cheng, who earned 2 taels of silver a month. Speaking of this, Li Ping was also a little embarrassed. Among the 3 brothers of Chun Cheng's family, Chen Cheng was undoubtedly the best candidate for son-in-law. Judging from the performance of Li Qian and Zhao Kong, they must also like Chun Cheng the most, but there's only one Chen Cheng, and you can't let Chen Cheng marry 3 brothers, right? At this time, Li Ping couldn't help but feel a little regretful. She should have considered this matter in advance. "Brother Dao, my mother is here." At this time, Chun Cheng's voice came from outside the door, and it was Chun Cheng's mother Lu Yin who walked into the room. As for Chun Cheng himself, perhaps he was a little embarrassed to talk about his marriage with everyone, so he stood in the front yard waiting. "Sister Lu, you're here. Come and sit down." Li Ping pulled Lu Yin to sit next to her and said with a smile, "The marriage I promised to arrange for your son has been arranged." After saying that, Li Ping pointed at Li Qian and the others and introduced them to Lu Yin. "This is Li Qian, Wang Yuan, this is Zhao Kong and Li Qing. They all have daughters who want to marry your son. Hello, father-in-law and mother-in-law. Lu Yin smiled and nodded to everyone, feeling happy in her heart. The fact that her parents-in-law had come meant that the marriages of her 3 sons would most likely be successful. Li Qian and others also nodded to Lu Yin. After everyone had greeted each other, Li Ping threw the previous question to Lu Yin. Sister Lu, the 2 daughters of the Zhao Kong family and the daughter of the Li Qian family all want to marry Cheng'e. What do you think we should do? Lu Yin never expected that she would face such a difficult problem as soon as she arrived. Among her 3 sons, Chen Cheng was undoubtedly the best one. He not only earned the most, but was also the strongest. To be fair, if she were in the shoes of Li Qian and others, she would definitely want to marry her daughter to Chen Cheng instead of Chen Shi and Chen Mu. But there's only one Chen Cheng after all. We can't let him marry all 3 of them, right? Lu Yin frowned and thought for a long time before she said, how about pairing them up based on age? Upon hearing this, Zhao Kong and Li Qing looked delighted. Their daughter was older than Li Qian's daughter. If they were paired according to age, their daughter would definitely be able to marry Chen Cheng. Li Qian frowned slightly, somewhat dissatisfied, but was too embarrassed to say it out loud. Lu Yin, who carefully looked at everyone's faces, was also in a dilemma. These 2 families obviously wanted their daughters to marry Cheng'e, which made things a bit difficult. Fortunately, Chen Dao spoke up at this time. My mother went to Uncle Zhao's house to propose marriage first, so Uncle Zhao's daughter should marry Chen Cheng and Chen Shi. As for Aunt Li's daughter, she should marry Chen Mu. As soon as Chen Dao opened his mouth, it had the final say. Li Cheng, who was about to speak up for his niece, suddenly stopped talking. He knew very well that in Chenjia village, Chen Dao was the one who had the final say. Once Chen Dao spoke, he would not be allowed to refute. As for Li Qian and Wang Yuan, although they did not refute Chen Dao's statement, they were somewhat dissatisfied in their hearts. Chen Dao also noticed their emotions and continued. Aunt Li and Uncle Wang, please rest assured. Your daughter won't suffer any loss if she marries Chen Mu. I will ask Cheng'e's family to provide some betrothal gifts so that your daughter can marry in style. Upon hearing this, Li Qian and Wang Yuan's eyes lit up. When they made the decision to marry their daughter to Chenjia village, they had not thought about the betrothal gift. The reason was very simple. These days, there are not many families who can afford to eat enough. So how could anyone afford a betrothal gift? But Chen Dao said that Chun Cheng's family would provide a betrothal gift, which was undoubtedly a pleasant surprise for the 2. Brother Dao, you're welcome. Although she was pleasantly surprised, Li Qian said, it's already a great honor for our daughter to marry into Chenjia village. How can we even ask for a betrothal gift? Chen Dao obviously didn't hear the polite words and waved his hand, saying, not only does your family have betrothal gifts, Uncle Zhao's family will have some too. Don't worry, your daughter will definitely get married in style when the time comes. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone in the living room laughed, and for a moment, the whole living room was filled with a joyful atmosphere. So, the marriage was decided. Zhao Kang's daughters Zhao Xiaoyan and Zhao Xiaomei married Chen Cheng and Chen Shi respectively, and Li Qian's daughter Li Li married Chen Mu. As for the opinions of the man and woman getting married, before coming, Li Qian and others had already asked their daughters what they thought. They were all willing to marry into Chenjia village, and the 3 bachelors, Chen Cheng, Chen Shi, and Chen Mu, naturally had no objections. After all, these days, it's good enough to be able to marry a wife. So how dare you have any opinions? Isn't everyone here eating yet? After discussing the marriage, Chen Dao said, let's eat something first. As soon as Chen Dao finished speaking, Zhao Kong and others took action immediately. In fact, they had been coveting the steamed buns on the table for a long time, but they were busy discussing business and had no time to taste them. As soon as Chen Dao opened his mouth, Zhao Kong immediately grabbed a steamed bun and bit off half of it in one bite. When Zhao Kong took the soft steamed bun into his mouth, the sweet and fragrant taste burst out. He couldn't help but narrow his eyes slightly, and a look of satisfaction appeared on his face. The villagers of Chenjia village really live a life like a god, eating such sweet and delicious steamed buns every day. Zhao Kong sighed in his heart. Chapter 168 Aspirations. While eating steamed buns, everyone talked about the wedding time. After some discussion, they finally set the wedding date for half a month later. Then Brother Dao will go back first. After finishing the discussion, it was already noon. After saying goodbye to Chen Dao, Li Chong took Li Qian and Zhao Kang's families away from Chen Dao's house and set out on the road back to Xiao village. It is worth mentioning that on the way back, Zhao Kong, Li Qing, Li Qian, and Wang Yuan were relatively far away from each other, walking on the left and right sides of Li Chong respectively. Obviously, there was some rift between the two families because of whose daughter married Chun Cheng's man. Seeing this, Li Chong turned to Li Qian and said, "Little sister, are you still thinking about what happened just now?" "No." Li Qian forced a laugh. Seeing her like this, Li Chong couldn't help but shake his head and said, "Although I can't marry Chun Cheng, marrying in a Qinjia village is not bad. You can see how good the people in Qinjia village eat every meal. Li Er will definitely live a good life if she marries in a Qinjia village." Hearing this, Li Qian nodded. She also knew that it was already very good for her daughter to be able to marry in a Qinjia village, but she could not help but feel a little regretful that she could not marry Qin Cheng. Soon, the group arrived at Xiao village and then went home. Zhao Xiaoyan and Zhao Xiaomei sat in their living room, looking out the door frequently. They both knew that their parents were going out today to Chunjia village to discuss their marriage, and they were both obviously very concerned about this matter. Elder sister, Zhao Xiaomei looked outside and asked, "What do you think the three Chun Cheng brothers look like? Are they ugly? Shouldn't it be?" Zhao Xiaoyan frowned slightly and answered uncertainly. At this time, the voices of Zhao Kong and Li Qing were heard outside the door. Zhao Xiaoyan and Zhao Xiaomei almost trotted outside and opened the door of their home for the two of them. "Dad, Mom." Zhao Xiaoyan's gaze fell on the two of them. He didn't say anything, but the questioning look in his eyes was particularly obvious. "Go inside and talk." Zhao Kong smiled, motioned for them to enter the house, and then said, "We went to Qinjia village, and the situation was exactly as the village chief described. Every household had enough white flour and steamed buns. By the way, we also saw Chun Cheng." Before Zhao Kong finished speaking, Zhao Xiaoyan blurted out, "What does Chun Cheng look like?" Hearing this, Zhao Kong and Li Qing looked at each other and couldn't help laughing. They all knew that their eldest daughter was an introverted person. The fact that she asked such a question at this moment showed that she was very concerned about her marriage. "That Chun Cheng looks pretty good." Zhao Kong didn't keep the secret and said, "He's tall and strong, and he's very powerful. You can tell at a glance that he's a good man." Zhao Xiaoyan couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. When Zhao Xiaomei asked that question just now, she was still quite worried that Chun Cheng was ugly or had a bad temper. Fortunately, after listening to what her father said, Chun Cheng seemed to be not bad. "My daughter." Zhao Kong smiled and continued, "Life in Qinjia village is truly good. Every household can afford to eat their fill. You will truly enjoy a life of luxury if you marry there." As he spoke, Zhao Kong talked about his experience at Chen Dao's house. He even worked part-time as a gourmet and described the taste of the steamed buns in great detail. Zhao Xiaoyan and Zhao Xiaomei listened quietly to their father's story and couldn't help but feel a little longing for life after marrying into Qinjia village. Nowadays, being able to have enough food to eat is the dream of countless people. The life of eating white flour buns every day in Qinjia village described by her father seemed to the second daughter to be no more than that of a rich landlord's family. Just as Zhao Kong and his family were talking. At Chen Dao's house, Chen Dao looked at Chun Cheng, who walked into the living room and said in a teasing tone, "Brother Cheng, you're going to have a wife soon. How are you feeling?" "Well," Chun Cheng's face turned red and he remained silent. Seeing this, everyone in the room laughed. Chun Cheng's character was still as honest as ever, and he couldn't say a word even if he was beaten 3 times. Seeing Chun Cheng silent, Chen Dao gave up the thought of teasing him. He changed the subject and said to Chun, "Village chief, find some people tomorrow and let's go to Xiao village to pay the betrothal gifts." "No problem." Chun agreed immediately. Lu Yin, who was standing by, said, "Brother Dao, what do you think our family should prepare for the betrothal gifts?" "You don't have to worry about this, Aunt Lu." Chun Dao waved his hand and said, "Let our family take care of this. Aunt Lu, just wait to welcome the new daughter-in-law." "That won't work." Lu Yin shook her head. "This marriage is our family's affair. How can I let you, dower, spend the money?" Lu Yin obviously understood what Chun Dao meant. It was obvious that Chun Dao wanted to pay the betrothal money out of his own pocket. This was obviously not something Lu Yin could accept. To be fair, Chun Dao had been good enough to their family, and they couldn't always take advantage of Chun Dao's family. It's settled. However, Chun Dao did not give Lu Yin a chance to refuse and made the decision directly. Then, Chun Dao continued, Aunt Lu, when you go back, quickly find some help to build a new house. Your house is really not suitable for a wedding. Chen Dao had been to Chun Cheng's home many times and was very familiar with the situation in Chun Cheng's home. The house of Chun Cheng's family had less than 3 bedrooms in total. Chun Cheng, Chun Shi, and Chun Mu shared one room. Lu Yan's belly shared one room, and the 3 children shared one room. It was completely crowded. Not to mention using it for a wedding, the bride would have no place to live after she gets married. I know. Lu Yan nodded solemnly. In fact, she had long thought about building a new house, but she had been thinking of using the 3 taels of silver to find wives for the men in her family. So, she had not taken action. Now that I have not spent any money on getting a wife, I can use the 3 taels of silver to build a new house. That's good. Chun Dao nodded, then looked at Chun He and said, Village Chief, can you spare some manpower in the field right now? Can. Chun He nodded without hesitation. Now that the wheat in the farmland of Qinjiao village has sprouted, there is much less work to be done. It is nothing more than irrigation, fertilization, and other tasks, which can free up some manpower. After hearing Chun He's answer, Chun Dao thought for a moment and said, Then starting tomorrow, Village Chief, you should make arrangements for the villagers. The wheat in the fields will be taken care of by the women and children in the village. The remaining young and strong people will build a new chicken farm for me. Chicken farm. Chun He didn't know what a chicken farm meant, but he nodded anyway. Okay. I'll arrange this tomorrow. The next day, Chun Dao, who had already developed the habit of getting up early, woke up early and went to the backyard to say to Chun Lian and the others who were busy, Sister Lian, please help me get 6 old yellow-feathered chickens. Okay. Chun Lian deftly tied up the 6 yellow-feathered chickens and then asked curiously, Brother Dao, is that peddler Wuhan here again? Chapter 169, The Best Person. Chun Lian knew that every time Wuhan came, Chun Dao would sell some old yellow-feathered chickens. So when she heard Chun Dao wanted yellow-feathered chickens, she couldn't help but wonder if Wuhan was coming. No. Chun Dao took the yellow-feathered chicken and said with a smile, This is the betrothal gift for Chang'er and his 3 brothers to find wives. In the Xia kingdom, the betrothal gifts of wealthy families were often mostly gold, silver, and other jewelry. But the poor people were obviously not so particular and just gave some chickens, ducks, money, and the like. Of course, these 6 yellow-feathered chickens are not the entire betrothal gift. Chun Dao will also give out some money as a betrothal gift. Bride price. Chun Lian, Wu Yun, and other women looked at each other in bewilderment. The news that the 3 Chun Chung brothers were about to marry 3 brides from Xiaohe village had spread throughout the village yesterday afternoon. After all, Qinjiao village was a small place, and any slight movement would spread throughout the village in minutes. Therefore, Chun Lian and the others also knew that the 3 Chun Chung brothers were about to get married, but they didn't expect. The betrothal gift for the marriage was actually paid by Chun Dao. Brother Dao. Wu Yun couldn't help but ask, Did you help provide the betrothal gifts for Chang'er and the others? Even though Chun Dao only prepared 6 chickens as a betrothal gift, in today's world where every household can't get enough to eat, 6 chickens are already very precious things. Not to mention that the chickens Chun Dao gave were precious yellow-feathered chickens. Certainly. Chun Dao nodded and said with a smile, Brother Chun works at my house. Now that he's married, I naturally have to help him out. After saying that, Chun Dao continued, Not only Chun Chung but also Sister Lian, when you get married in the future, I will help you with your dowry. If Aunt Wu and you get married again, I will help you too. After all, Chun Dao was an ordinary worker in his previous life, and he had not yet developed the greedy and employee-exploiting characteristics of capitalists. In his opinion, Chun Chung, Chun Lian, and others worked so hard to help him, so he naturally had to be nicer to them. It wouldn't cost much to help Chun Chung with the betrothal gift, but it would win Chun Cheng's favor and make Chun Chung work harder. Why not do it? Brother Dao, please stop making fun of us. Wu Yun and the other women smiled a little embarrassedly and said, We are already this old. How can we remarry? Although they said this, Wu Yun and other women were extremely moved in their hearts. To be fair, although they worked hard in Chun Dao's house, they were not tired. But Chun Dao treated them so well that they felt like crying. Apart from her deceased husband, Chun Dao was the best person to them in the village. All right, Chun Dao waved his hand and said, I'm still busy going to Xiaohe village to pay the betrothal gifts, so I won't say any more. After saying that, Chun Dao carried the 6 yellow-feathered chickens and returned to his front yard. At this time, young and strong men, including Chunda and Chun he had gathered outside the front yard. Some of them were holding some musical instruments that Chun Dao did not recognize. He guessed that they were instruments used in weddings and funerals in the Xia kingdom. "Brother Dao, shall we set off now?" Seeing Chun Dao coming, Chun he hurriedly stepped forward and asked. He got up earlier than Chun Dao today in order to arrange work for the villagers, which he had already done. He arranged for the women in the village to take care of the crops in the fields, while the young and strong men started building a larger and stronger chicken farm next to Chun Dao's house. "Wait a minute, I'll go get ready." Chun Dao returned to the house, found the red rope he had prepared in advance, tied the yellow-feathered chicken's feet, and then put the yellow-feathered chicken into a chicken coop covered with red paper. He carried the chicken coop to Lu Yin and said, "Aunt Lu, you will give the betrothal gifts to the bride's family later." "I understand." Lu Yin nodded. Several women followed her and were responsible for selecting the betrothal gifts. Besides, Chun Dao took out 3 more packages of copper coins wrapped in red cloth and handed them to Lu Yin. Each package contains 888 copper coins. "Aunt Lu, please give them to the bride's family later." Chun Dao didn't know what number was auspicious in Xia country, so he just followed his own ideas and prepared 888 copper coins and 2 yellow-feathered chickens for each bride. "Brother Dao, thank you." Lu Yin held the copper coins in her hands, feeling deeply moved. Chun Dao's gift was indeed very generous. 6 yellow-feathered chickens, plus more than 2 taels of silver, had a total value of more than 5 taels of silver. This amount could not be raised even if she sold everything in her family. "It's a small matter." Chun Dao waved his hand and said, "Let's go." As soon as Chun Dao finished speaking, the large army set off. The young and strong men in the village, plus the women who came to help, a betrothal team of more than 10 people, headed towards Xiao village with drums and gongs beating. Soon, the team entered the territory of Xiao village. The sound of gongs and drums immediately attracted the attention of many villagers in Xiao village. "What do those people do?" A man huddled at home looked through the window at Chun Dao and others outside and asked with a puzzled look on his face. "It looks to me like he's here to pay his betrothal gift." The woman in the family replied that she had married into Xiao village 10 years ago and had also experienced such a lively scene of giving betrothal gifts. "Give a betrothal gift." The man jumped up from the bed and said to the woman, "Wife, let's go out and take a look." It is human nature to join in the fun. Faced with such a lively scene, both men and women could not sit still. They went out in the cold wind to watch Chun Dao and others who were waiting to bring the betrothal gifts. Soon, the roadside of Xiao village was crowded with villagers from Xiao village who came to watch the excitement. These villagers did not go up to disturb Chun Dao and others, but just chatted with each other. Lao Jiang, which family did this group of people give the betrothal gift to? How would I know? The man called Lao Jiang thought for a moment, then stopped a young man from Chun village who was passing by and asked, "Young man, which family in our village are you giving the betrothal gift to?" "Zhao Kang's family and Wang Yuan's family." "So if it's the Kong family and the Wang family." Old Jiang suddenly realized and said, "You are from Qinjia village, right?" "Certainly." When talking about his identity as a villager of Qinjia village, the young man's face was full of pride. He had reason to be proud. Compared with Xiaohe village, which was still poor and hungry, life in Qinjia village was obviously much better. While the two were talking, the team had already stopped in front of Li Qian's house. Lu Yin placed the chicken coop in front of the door and then went forward to knock on it. At this time, the villagers of Xiaohe village who were watching finally noticed the betrothal gift that Lu Yin had been carrying. "Wow, what a plump chicken. Why is this chicken so big? Is this chicken a betrothal gift? Wang Yuan's family is really spending a lot of money. Such a plump chicken, one can easily last us 3 days. If we take this chicken to the city and sell it, I'm afraid it won't be a problem to sell it for 300 coins. Qinjia village is really generous. They actually offer such a beautiful chicken as a betrothal gift." Chapter 170, Envious Villagers of Xiao Village. The villagers of Xiao Village were talking about it one after another, and there was a strong look of envy on everyone's face. In this year, when people can't even get enough bran to eat, Wang Yuan's family can receive such a fat chicken. How could people not be envious? Even some villagers who have daughters waiting to be married couldn't help but think, "Can I also marry my daughter to Qinjia village? Then maybe I can also receive chickens as a betrothal gift." Squeak! When Li Qian's door opened, Not only Li Qian and Wang Yuan came out, but also Li Chong, who had been waiting at Li Qian's house since early morning. Seeing the people beating drums and gongs outside the door, Li Qian couldn't help but smile brightly. "Mother-in-law, come in quickly." After saying that, Li Qian welcomed Lu Yan, Chun He, Chun Dao, and Li Ping into the house. As for the young and strong men from Qinjia village, they continued to stay outside and beat drums and gongs. "Father-in-law, mother-in-law, this is the betrothal gift we give to the bride." Lu Yan placed a chicken coop containing 2 yellow-feathered chickens in the living room, then took out a red cloth bag from her arms and stuffed it into Li Qian's hand. Li Qian weighed the cloth bag, and the joy on her face became even stronger. The cloth bag was not light, and Li Qian knew that there must be a lot of copper coins inside without opening it. Immediately, Li Qian looked at the chicken coop that Lu Yan put down, and her eyes suddenly lit up even brighter. These days, meat is absolutely a rare thing for ordinary people. The 2 chickens that Lu Yan gave as a betrothal gift are not only golden in color and extremely festive, but also very large in size. It is obvious at a glance that they can produce a lot of meat. "Oh, you're so polite," Li Qian said with great joy, and her unhappiness about her daughter not being able to marry Chung immediately disappeared. There was no way. The betrothal gift was too generous. Not only did it include a large amount of copper coins, but it also included 2 such plump chickens, which was enough to satisfy Li Qian. Not to mention Li Qian, even Wang Yuan and Li Chong next to them had smiles on their faces, and they were extremely satisfied. The betrothal gift that Lu Yan brought was not bad, even in a peaceful year, let alone in this year of cold disaster. "Mother-in-law, please sit down quickly." Li Qian happily held Lu Yan's hand and said, "Brother Dao, village chief Chun, you 2 should sit down too. I'll go get you some water." After Li Qian served everyone hot water and some food, they started eating and chatting. Meanwhile, the sounds of gongs and drums outside Li Qian's house attracted more villagers. Some who had just arrived and were unfamiliar with the situation asked those familiar with the place, "What's going on at Li Qian's house? Why is it so lively?" "You don't know yet?" The villager in question replied, "The daughter of Li Qian's family is going to marry in Qinjia village. Qinjia village is quite generous and gave her 2 chickens as a betrothal gift." "There are more than 2 chickens," a villager nearby interrupted. "There are also copper coins. I just saw that woman surnamed Lu put a red money bag into Li Qian's hand. I estimate that there are at least 500 copper coins in that bag." "What?" As soon as these words were spoken, the villagers in the surrounding Xiaohe village were shocked. In their opinion, 2 chickens were the most generous gift possible. And there were even copper coins? 500 copper coins. The young man from Qinjia village, who had heard the voice, immediately showed disdain on his face and said, "How can you afford 500 copper coins? There are a full 888 copper coins in that bag." 888 pieces? The villagers of the surrounding Xiaohe village stood there in a daze as if struck by lightning. The villagers of Xiaohe village were even poorer than those of Qinjia village. 500 copper coins seemed like a lot to them, but this young man told them, "Not 500, but 888? Young man, you didn't lie to us, did you?" The middle-aged man called Lao Jiang looked directly into the eyes of the young man in Qinjia village and asked, "Why would I lie to you?" The young man from Qinjia village said, "I heard Dao Gooder say it himself. There are 888 copper coins in the bag. It must be real." After saying that, the young man continued, "Apart from the copper coins, those 2 chickens are also worth a lot of money. Do you know how much those 2 chickens can be sold for in the city?" "Young master duo?" The villagers of Xiaohe village asked subconsciously. They had just noticed that the chickens in the chicken coops were particularly different. When they heard the young man from Qinjia village mention it, they couldn't help but become curious. "This number," the young man raised a finger and said, "A yellow-feathered chicken can be sold for 1 or 2 taels of silver in the city." The sound of people gasping for breath all around almost drowned out the sound of gongs and drums. "Why is it so expensive? Could it be that eating this chicken can prolong life? 1 chicken sells for 1 ounce of silver. Impossible. Absolutely impossible." The villagers of Xiaohe village looked at the young man who quoted the price of the chicken in disbelief and subconsciously said things like impossible. "How is it impossible?" The young man remained non-committal and said, "Didn't you see? The chicken's feathers are golden yellow, making it look very rich and noble. The wealthy families in the city love them." What's so strange about selling them for a few ounces of silver? Upon hearing this, the villagers from the surrounding Shawa village fell silent. Just as the young and strong men from Chinja village said, they certainly wouldn't buy a chicken for 1 or 2 taels of silver, but the wealthy families in the city might not think so. The wealthy families in the city have plenty of money, and buying a chicken for 1 or 2 taels of silver is not necessarily an impossible thing for them. 1 tael of silver for a chicken. I just saw that woman, surnamed Lu, give 2 to Li Qian. Add to that 888 copper coins. Doesn't that mean the betrothal gift is worth at least 2 taels and 8 coins? A villager from Xiaohe village who was sensitive to numbers said this, and as soon as he said this, everyone's eyes widened. 3 taels of silver as a betrothal gift. Are the people in Chun village really that rich? Damn it, why wasn't my daughter the one marrying into Chun village? Li Qian's family is really rich. With a betrothal gift of 3 taels of silver, she'll have no problem living comfortably in the future. The family that married Li Qian's daughter is so wealthy. After Li Qian's daughter marries into Chunjia village, won't she be able to live the good life of a landlord's wife? That's right. The betrothal gift alone is worth 3 taels of silver. After she gets married, I'm afraid she'll have to eat white rice every meal. White rice. People can afford 3 taels of silver as a betrothal gift. How can white rice alone be enough? I think eating meat every meal is not a problem. The villagers of Xiaohe village spoke with sourness in their tone. At this moment, their envy of Li Qian's family reached its peak. There was no other way. The betrothal gifts offered by Chun village were simply too generous. Some villagers with daughters even wanted to replace Li Qian so that they could receive the 3 taels of silver betrothal gift. And those who marry into Chinjia village and live a good life become the daughters of our own family. Chapter 171 Sour Breath. About a quarter of an hour later, Chun Dao and others, who had been chatting at Li Qian's house for a while, left Li Qian's house, beating drums and gongs, and walked towards Zhao Kang's house happily. However, the villagers of Xiaohe village who were watching from the outside were having difficulty making a decision at this time. They wanted to follow Chun Dao and others, but also wanted to go to Li Qian's home to find Li Qian and the village chief to find out the details of the situation. For a moment, they hesitated. Never mind, let's go take a look first. The middle-aged man named Lao Jiang stamped his feet and chose to follow Chun Dao and others in their proposal-seeking team. Seeing this, the other villagers suppressed their curiosity and followed. Soon, the betrothal team, led by Chun Dao, stopped in front of Zhao Kang's house. At this time, Zhao Kang and Li, who had already heard the noise, were waiting outside the door. Seeing everyone stop, the two hurried forward and said to Lu Yan, "Mother-in-law, please come in quickly." After saying that, he welcomed Chun Dao and others into the house. The villagers from Xiaohe village who followed behind felt even more sad when they saw the unconcealed smile on Zhao Kang's face when he turned around and returned. Zhao Kang has really spent all his money. A man from a small river village said with a face full of resentment, "The betrothal gift for 1 daughter is 3 taels of silver. So for these 2 daughters, it must be 6 taels, right?" 6 taels of silver was considered a huge fortune for the villagers of Xiaohe village. After all, in those days, there was not a single family in the entire village that could afford even 1 tael of silver. Damn it, Zhao Kang is so lucky to have found such a good family for his daughter. Why can't my daughter find such a good family? 6 taels of silver as a betrothal gift. I'm afraid the Zhao family will have to live like landlords from now on. That's right. I've never seen so much money in my life. 6 taels of silver. The air was once again filled with a sour smell. When the villagers of Xiaohe village thought that the Zhao Kang family would receive a betrothal gift worth 6 taels of silver, they suddenly felt unwell. That's 6 taels of silver. They couldn't help but think, how great it would be if their daughters could marry into Chinjia village. Wouldn't they be able to receive the 6 taels of silver betrothal gift and never have to worry about going hungry in the future? Thinking of this, the villagers immediately took action. An old man from Xiaohe village, who looked to be about 60 years old and had a wrinkled face, stopped a young man from Chinjia village who was beating a gong and drum. He asked, "Young man, I have a granddaughter who's about to get married. Is there anyone else in your village who needs a wife?" The young man who was pulled was startled for a moment, then said, "Yes, there is, but not everyone can afford such a large betrothal gift." Qingzhuang knew very well that the reason why Chun Cheng could offer such a generous betrothal gift was all thanks to Chen Dao's help. If other people got married, they probably wouldn't have such a good thing. After all, the others are not as popular as Chun Cheng is with Chen Dao, so it is impossible for Chen Dao to help them pay the betrothal gifts for free. Is that so? The old man sighed in disappointment, but still said with some hope, even if there's not that much betrothal gift, half of it will be fine. Half. The young man from Qinjia village thought for a moment and said, there are quite a few people in our village who can afford half of the betrothal gift, but if your granddaughter wants to marry in our village, I'm afraid she'll have to find a matchmaker herself. Hearing this, a thoughtful look flashed in the old man's eyes. He didn't know the situation in Qinjia village, but it was not difficult to hear from the young man's words that the villagers of Qinjia village must be living a better life than those in Xiao village. Maybe I can really find a matchmaker to go to Qinjia village to propose marriage. Even if I can't get a generous betrothal gift, at least my granddaughter can have enough food to eat after marrying into Qinjia village, and it can also reduce the food pressure at home. Not only the old man, but others were also thoughtful. Those who had daughters were already thinking about which matchmaker to find to go to Qinjia village to propose marriage. At the same time, in the living room of Zhao Kang's house, Zhao Kong and Li Qing were looking at the 4 yellow-feathered chickens placed on the ground by Lu Yan, and they were so happy that they almost couldn't see. Father-in-law and mother-in-law. Lu Yan smiled and stuffed 2 red cloth bags into the 2 men's hands. This is our betrothal gift. It contains 4 yellow-feathered chickens and 1,776 copper coins. Mother-in-law is so polite. Li Qing accepted the cloth bag with great joy, then asked everyone to sit down in the house and chatted with them with a happy face. At the same time, in the next room, Zhao Xiaoyun and Zhao Xiaomei were talking while listening to the noise outside. According to the customary rules of the Xia people, when the betrothal gifts are given, the daughters are not allowed to see outsiders. Therefore, the 2 girls did not go out, but stayed in the bedroom and waited. But because the house is relatively small and the sound insulation is almost non-existent, the 2 women staying in the bedroom can hear the sounds outside clearly. Sister, did you hear that? Zhao Xiaomei lowered her voice and said, the betrothal gift from Chun Cheng's family was 4 chickens and over 1,700 copper coins. When she said this, Zhao Xiaomei licked the corner of her mouth unconsciously. It was not because she was hungry, but because she missed the taste of meat. She couldn't help but think in her heart, I wonder if my parents will kill those 4 chickens and eat them? I heard it. Zhao Xiaoyan nodded slightly, her eyes leisurely. Judging from the generous betrothal gift, Chun Cheng's family was very sincere and attached great importance to her and her sister. This was good. This way, she wouldn't be bullied after she got married. Elder sister, Zhao Xiaomei continued, after we marry into Qinjia village, will we really be able to eat steamed buns every day? It should be. Zhao Xiaoyan smiled and nodded. Father and mother have already confirmed the situation in Qinjia village and told them. Zhao Xiaomei must also be aware of it. She's probably asking now simply because she's unsure. Very nice. Zhao Xiaomei smiled when she got a positive answer and was obviously very happy. When she thought about being able to eat her fill every day in the future and that they were white flour buns, she couldn't help but feel a little excited. She had heard from her father about the taste of the steamed buns. According to her father, the steamed buns were soft, delicious, and sweet, even better than white rice. There seems to be no sound outside. At this time, Zhao Xiaoyan heard the noises outside, getting farther and farther away, and immediately realized that the betrothal team from Qinjia village should have left home. Realizing this, Zhao Xiaoyan was about to pull Zhao Xiaomei out of the bedroom. However, at this moment, a noisy sound came from the living room outside, and Zhao Xiaoyan hurriedly listened attentively. Is it the villagers who came to my house? Many of the sounds outside were familiar to Zhao Xiaoyan, so she guessed that it was the villagers coming in. So, Zhao Xiaoyan hurriedly pulled Zhao Xiaomei back, who was about to leave the bedroom, and continued to stay in the bedroom to eavesdrop. Chapter 172, Shocked Villagers of Xiao Village. The living room of Zhao Kang's house. After Qin Dao and others left, the villagers who were watching the excitement outside rushed into Zhao Kang's house. Not only did they fill the entire living room, but even the front yard was full of people. Some people couldn't even find a place to stay and could only watch the excitement outside Zhao Kang's house. Old Zhao, the middle-aged man named Lao Jiang, was obviously very familiar with Zhao Kang. He said, "You've really made a fortune. You accepted a betrothal gift of 6 taels of silver." While speaking, Lao Jiang stared at the yellow-feathered chicken placed in the corner of the living room, with envy in his eyes. 6 tails? Zhao Kong was stunned and asked in frustration, where did the 6 tails of silver come from? Zhao Kong only received a total of 1,776 copper coins and 4 yellow-feathered chickens as a betrothal gift. Where did the 6 tails of silver come from? You don't know yet? A young man pointed at the yellow-feathered chicken in surprise and said, what Xinjia village sent is not just any ordinary chicken, but a yellow-feathered chicken worth 1 or 2 taels of silver. 1 ounce of silver per piece. Zhao Kong and Li Qing's eyes widened immediately. They could naturally see the extraordinariness of the yellow-feathered chicken. After all, the yellow-feathered chicken looked much better than the gray-feathered chicken. But they never expected that this chicken would be so extraordinary. A chicken is worth 1 tael of silver. Zhao Kong looked at the young man who had just spoken in disbelief and said, Li Ming, you're not kidding me, are you? What kind of chicken is worth 1 or 2 taels of silver? Why would I lie to you? The young man, namely Meng, rolled his eyes and said, this is the price the people from Xinjia village told me personally. It must be true. After saying this, Li Meng continued, take a closer look at this chicken. Its feathers are golden yellow, exactly the same color as the emperor's. It truly is a sign of wealth and luxury. What's so strange about selling it for only 1 ounce of silver? As soon as these words were spoken, the other villagers in Xiao village nodded. They had already accepted this statement. In their opinion, the yellow-feathered chicken had golden feathers, the same color as the royal family's royal feathers, so it was reasonable to sell it at a high price of 1 or 2 taels of silver. Zhao Kong and Li Qing looked at each other, and after a brief moment of surprise, endless ecstasy surged in their hearts. For the Zhao Kong family, even if the betrothal gift sent by Xinjia village was only copper coins, it would be enough to satisfy them. Unexpectedly, there was an unexpected surprise. This chicken is worth 1 tael of silver, and if I bought 4 of them, that would be 4 taels plus 1,776 copper coins, which means the betrothal gift we received today was nearly 6 taels of silver. This is 6 taels of silver. Zhao Kang's family was relatively poor in Xiao village due to the lack of male labor. It could be said that Zhao Kong and Li Qing had only seen a full tael of silver very few times in their entire lives. But at this moment, they suddenly earned 6 taels of silver, which made Zhao Kong and Li Qing feel like they had become rich overnight. Of course, in addition to this generous betrothal gift, what made Zhao Kong most excited was Xinjia village gave him enough face. The betrothal team from Xinjia village arrived with drums and gongs, attracting the entire Xiao village community. They told them that their daughters were getting married and that they had received a huge betrothal gift. Looking at the envious faces of everyone in the room, Zhao Kong felt as if he had drunk a sip of ice water in the hottest days of summer, and an aura of joy emanated from his whole body. The people from Xiao village in the house looked at Zhao Kang's smile, and the more they looked at it, the more irritating it became. Damn it, Zhao Kong is laughing so happily. Doesn't he consider our feelings? Old Jiang looked at Zhao Kong with resentment and asked, how did you find this good marriage? I'm lucky too. Zhao Kong grinned and said, do you know Li Ping from our village who married into Xiao village? No. Everyone in Xiao village nodded. They naturally knew Li Ping. In fact, many of them had seen Li Ping just now. It was just that Li Ping was proposing marriage, so they didn't go up to say hello. Seeing everyone nod, Zhao Kong continued. A few days ago, Li Ping came to my house and said she wanted to find wives for the 3 men in Xinjia village. She wanted to ask my daughter if she was willing to marry. At this point, Zhao Kong glanced at everyone's faces and boasted. At first, I wasn't too happy about it. Those 3 boys had lost their father, and there was only an old mother with 6 children at home. It was obvious at first glance that they weren't from a good family. Then why did you agree later? Lao Jiang asked impatiently. Later, Zhao Kong recalled for a moment and continued. Then I thought, my daughter isn't young anymore. If she doesn't get married soon, she'll become an old maid. So I didn't reject Li Ping, but just said I'd consider it. Then I went to see the village chief, thinking of asking him about the situation in Xinjia village. It would have been fine if I didn't understand this, but once I did, I was completely shocked. Zhao Kang's face flashed with shock at the right moment. The village chief told me that life in Xinjia village is pretty good. Everyone in the village can eat enough, and they eat white flour buns. What? When Zhao Kong said this, Everyone inside and outside the house was shocked. Every household eats white flour buns, and they can still be full? Are you kidding me? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. How can we eat white flour buns every day these days? Old Zhao, are you kidding us? I've been to Qinjia village before, and they're just as poor as us. Where do they get their white flour buns? Everyone's reaction was surprisingly consistent, which was disbelief. Because Xiaohe village is close to Qinjia village, both sides may not be familiar with each other's situation, but they have some understanding of each other. In everyone's impression, Qinjia village is a village similar to Xiaohe village, and it is impossible to eat white flour buns in such a year. Seeing that everyone was doubting him, Zhao Kong didn't get angry. Instead, he said, "What you know about Qinjia village is outdated. Now, Qinjia village has a talented person. Not only does he provide the villagers with white flour buns every day, he also gives them money every month." What? Everyone was even more confused and felt that Zhao Kong was just telling a story. There are more than 500 people in Qinjia village. If they're fed with white flour buns for every meal and given money, even a landlord from the city will go bankrupt if they come here. Old Zhao, you're probably telling us something from book. That's right. There's no such kind-hearted person in the world. There are so many fat gluttons in Qinjia village. If we feed them white flour buns every day, even the emperor would go bankrupt. Each meal is filled with white flour buns, and they even give out money. Damn it, has the talented person in Qinjia village found a mountain of gold? Everyone shook their heads like rattles. It was not that they were unwilling to believe Zhao Kong, but what Zhao Kong said was too ridiculous and did not fit in with their understanding of Qinjia village. Chapter 173, Great Ability. This is something I saw with my own eyes. It can't be fake. Zhao Kong said with a firm tone, "I have personally been to Qinjia village and saw the villagers of Qinjia village receiving steamed buns to eat. I even ate a steamed bun myself." Having said that, Zhao Kong couldn't help but smack his lips, as if the fragrance of steamed buns was still lingering in his mouth. Seeing Zhao Kong so confident, the villagers couldn't help but feel suspicious. Zhao Kong was so sure, could it be? Did the villagers of Qinjia village really eat white flour buns every day, just as Zhao Kong said? And could they even get enough to eat? As for the money distribution, I didn't see that. Zhao Kong said again. Hearing this, Lao Jiang immediately said, "That's what I told you. There's no such good thing in the world, giving you white flour buns and money at the same time." Before Lao Jiang finished speaking, Zhao Kong continued, "But the village chief saw it. He told me that he saw with his own eyes that every villager in Qinjia village received 2 taels of silver." In an instant, Zhao Kang's living room and front yard fell into deathly silence. Everyone stared at Zhao Kong with wide eyes, as if they had heard something earth-shattering. Mr. Do. Lao Jiang looked at Zhao Kong with his eyes wide open, and couldn't help but scratch his ears, wondering if he had heard it wrong. 2 taels of silver. Zhao Kong stretched out 2 fingers and shook them at Lao Jiang. Everyone was silent, looking at each other, not knowing what to say for a moment. What Zhao Kong said was like a fairy tale to them. The entire Qinjia village, with more than 500 people, not only had enough white flour buns to fill their stomachs, but they also received 2 taels of silver. This is simply outrageous to the extreme, so outrageous that no one can believe it. I'm sure Lao Zhao is trying to make fun of us. Yes. Damn it, there's not a single word of truth coming out of old Zhao's mouth. Let's all go. Let's disperse. Everyone go home. Everyone said they were going home, but they didn't move at all, showing no intention of leaving. Although they found it difficult to accept what Zhao Kong said, they knew in their hearts that Zhao Kong had no reason to lie to them, which meant what Zhao Kong said about Qinjia village is very likely to be true. Why would I bother you guys? Zhao Kong smiled and reported another shocking piece of news. Take my eldest son-in-law, Chun Sheng, for example. He alone received a full 4 taels of silver. Everyone fell silent again, feeling that what Zhao Kong said was becoming more and more outrageous. 4 taels of silver. Old Zhao, you have probably never seen such a large amount of silver in your life, right? Old Zhao. Old Jiang looked Zhao Kong straight in the eye and said word by word, "Is everything you said true? Do the villagers of Qinjia village really have enough white flour buns every day and receive money every month?" "Of course it's true," Zhao Kong said without hesitation. "If you don't believe it, you can ask the village chief, or you can go to Qinjia village yourself to see it. After all, Chinjiao village is not far from us. Besides, if Chinjiao village wasn't so good, why would I be willing to marry my daughter there? Everyone nodded in agreement when they heard this. Just as Zhao Kong said, if Chinjiao village wasn't really that good, with Zhao Kang's personality, he would definitely not have married his daughters there to suffer. Otherwise, Zhao Kang's two daughters wouldn't have been so unmarried at such an old age. This Chinjiao village. Old Jiang was shocked and said, "We can't even get enough bran in our village. How can Chinjiao village afford to eat white flour buns every day and even receive money every month?" This is the thing that Lao Jiang cannot understand the most. He is a farmer, which is often called a self-cultivating farmer in history books. All the income of self-cultivating farmers is basically related to the land. But now a coal disaster has swept across Qingzhou, and crops cannot be grown in the entire Qingzhou. This has caused farmers to lose their source of income, and almost every household is in a state of hunger. However, in this situation, someone told him that every household in the neighboring village could have enough white flour buns and receive silver every month. Lao Jiang really couldn't understand this. The land doesn't produce any food. Could it be that the food and silver in Chinjiao village fell from the sky? Didn't I tell you? Chinjiao village has produced a talented person. Zhao Kong sighed and said, "Did you notice a handsome young man among the betrothal team just now?" "I noticed." Everyone nodded. Chun Dao was the only child in the marriage proposal team, so he naturally attracted a lot of attention. In addition, the clothes Chun Dao wore and his appearance were also very different from those of the others. Everyone else was wearing linen clothes, no different from the people in Xiao village. But Chun Dao was wearing a cotton coat and looked exceptionally handsome, making it hard not to notice him. That young man's name is Chun Dao. He's the talented man from Chun village I was talking about. Zhao Kong said, "Brother Dao is a capable man. He was the one who gave the villagers of Chinjiao village white flour buns to eat and even gave them money. How is this possible? How can a young boy like him have such ability?" Lao Zian Zito Subun Siko. Others also spoke up. "Old Jiang, are you kidding me? That kid only looks like he's 15 or 16. How could he have such great abilities?" "Yeah, we adults can't make any money. So how can that kid make so much money?" "That's right. Children don't know what's going on. How can they have such abilities?" Everyone's first reaction was still disbelief, and the reason was very simple. Chun Dao was still a child after all, and it was difficult for these villagers to accept that he had such great abilities. Whether you believe it or not, this is the truth. Zhao Kong said, "Brother Dao is truly an amazing man. Not only can he earn enough money to feed the entire village, but he can also give money to the villagers of Chinjiao village." At this point, Zhao Kong seemed to recall something and continued, "Oh right. I also heard from the village chief that the county magistrate had made a special trip to Chinjiao village, supposedly to meet Dao Ger." County magistrate? Everyone looked at each other in bewilderment. In Taiping County, the county magistrate was no different from the emperor in everyone's eyes. He was a top figure that they could not reach. Yet, such a person actually went to Chinjiao village to meet Chun Dao in person. Old Jiang couldn't help but ask, did the county magistrate really go all the way to Chinjiao village just to see Dao? I also heard it from the village chief and the village chief of Chinjiao village. Zhao Kong said uncertainly, but since both village chiefs said so, it shouldn't be false. Yes. The temperature in the room suddenly rose a few degrees, and everyone gasped, their faces filled with disbelief. The county magistrate, the most prestigious person in Taiping County, actually went all the way to Chinjiao village, a remote place, just to see Chun Dao. This Chun Dao might really be as capable as Zhao Kong said. Chapter 174, 7th rank. About half an hour later, the villagers of Xiao village dispersed from Zhao Kang's house with shocked expressions on their faces. At the same time, many people had thoughtful glints in their eyes. Some people want to take some time to visit Chinjiao village to see if it is really as good as Zhao Kong said. Of course, this is the idea of the villagers who don't have daughters at home. As for those who have daughters who are about to get married, they're already considering contacting a matchmaker. Chinjiao village is so wealthy and people live so well. If my daughter could marry into Chinjiao village, wouldn't she be able to live a luxurious life and my family could also benefit from it and get a valuable betrothal gift? In short, at this moment, the villagers of Xiao village are very curious about Chinjiao village. Some people have already planned to go to Chinjiao village tomorrow to find someone familiar to ask about the situation. If the situation is really as Zhao Kong said, then this Chunjia village is really amazing. Brother Dao, the village chief. In Chunjia village, Chun Dao and his group had just returned to the village when an elderly man walked in and said, "We've encountered some difficulties." Chun Dao looked up at the man, and his name immediately came to his mind. Chen Ho. Chen Ho, about 45 years old, was considered the best carpenter in Chunjia village. As for why he was called the best carpenter rather than a carpenter, because Chun Ho's carpentry skills are all learned by himself. He is not a professional carpenter. The only furniture he can make are simple furniture, such as tables and chairs. As for more complicated carpentry work, Chun Ho cannot do it. It was precisely because of Chun Ho's skills that when arranging manpower to build a new chicken farm, Chun He gave Chun Ho the title of supervisor, which is equivalent to the title of general manager. What's the problem? Chun He looked at Chun Ho and asked. According to Dao Guer's requirements, our newly built chicken farm needs to be more solid and more rigorous. Chun Ho scratched his head and said, and the space needs to be large enough. With our skills, it's difficult to build such a chicken farm. The chicken farm in Chun Dao's backyard is surrounded by a fence made entirely of wooden sticks and bamboo strips. Such a fence is obviously not structurally strong and not suitable for keeping secrets. Therefore, when building a new chicken farm, Chun Dao instructed that the new chicken farm must be completely enclosed and must be strong enough. Chun Dao's request undoubtedly made the villagers like Chun Ho who were working there feel a little embarrassed. They could still build a chicken farm surrounded by fences, but they were completely at a loss as to how to build the kind of chicken farm that Chun Dao mentioned, which was completely enclosed and even had to have a roof sealed. Chun Dao frowned upon hearing Chun Ho's answer and asked, "What's the main problem?" "We need bricks and tiles." Chun Ho replied, "Without these two things, we can't build the chicken farm you're talking about, Brother Dao." "Bricks, tiles." Chun Dao pondered for a moment and said, "So, you're looking for craftsmen who can make bricks and tiles?" "Right, I see." Chun Dao nodded and said, "You guys start by laying the foundation. I'll take care of the carpenters." "Okay." Chun Ho left with satisfaction. At the same time, the villagers who were working in the fields also returned. Many women lined up to receive steamed buns and teased Chun Chung. "Brother Chung, I heard that you three brothers are going to marry new wives?" "What are you talking about?" "Brother Chung has already paid the betrothal gifts and is just waiting for the wedding. 3 brides marrying in at once is a big happy event in our village." "That's right. I heard from my son that today's betrothal gift presentation was a big deal. The whole Xiao village was alarmed." "Wow, such a big scene." "Yes, I heard Dao Ger also helped with the betrothal gift. The generous betrothal gift made the people in Xiao village smile nonstop. Chunger's family is so lucky. They have met a good person like Daoer." As they talked, the topic of the conversation shifted from Chun Chung to Chun Dao, which made Chun Chung feel relieved. With his dull personality, he really didn't know how to deal with the topic of his marriage. Whenever he heard others mention it, he could only smile foolishly. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. During these 3 days, the villagers of Chunjia village were still working step by step. Those who needed to take care of the crops took care of the crops, and those who needed to build houses built houses. Their lives were busy and fulfilling. While the villagers were busy, Chun Dao was not idle either. He still practiced the tiger-subduing fist with Chun Chung every day. Call. In the front yard of Chun Dao's house, after practicing the subduing tiger fist, Chun Dao exhaled a breath of hot air. His face and skin instantly turned red, and the blood in his body seemed to be boiling, causing the pores all over his body to continuously emit wisps of white mist. The white mist gathered in the air and was visible to the naked eye in the cold weather. 7th rank warrior done. After a moment, Chun Dao felt his own strength and a smile appeared on his lips. With the help of a blood feather chicken every day, Chun Dao's energy and blood increased at an alarming rate. In just a dozen days, he was promoted from an 8th grade warrior to a 7th grade warrior, possessing a strength of 1,000 pounds. In addition, Chun Cheng's progress is also remarkable. As early as 3 days ago, Chun Chung had been promoted to an 8th grade warrior. Moreover, Chun Chung was extremely talented. As soon as he was promoted to the 8th grade, he possessed a strength of more than 800 kilograms, which is almost comparable to the peak 8th grade warrior. At the 7th level, the effect of the blood-feathered chicken is minimal. Chun Dao picked up the remaining blood of the blood-feathered chicken and took a sip. After carefully feeling the situation in his body, he frowned slightly. When he was still an 8th grade peak warrior, he could feel that the effect of the blood feather chicken was declining. Now that he has been promoted to the 7th grade, the effect of the blood feather chicken's blood is almost zero. Obviously, the blood feather chicken is very effective for 9th grade and 8th grade warriors, but it is of no help to 7th grade warriors. Fortunately, I have prepared the red-blooded chicken in advance. The information about the red blood chicken appeared in Chen Dao's mind. Red blood chicken features chicken blood and chicken meat can nourish qi and blood, and the effect is even greater than that of blood-feathered chicken. Red blood chicken advancement, Route 1. Mating with a blood-crowned chicken will hatch an eagle feather chicken. Features of the eagle feather chicken: claws like iron and steel, feathers like a hawk, can briefly float, and its combat power is comparable to that of a 7th grade warrior. Red blood chicken advancement, Route 2. Feed coxcomb for 7 consecutive days to advance to iron feather chicken. Features of the iron feather chicken: tough wings, sharp claws, and combat power comparable to that of a 7th grade warrior. As early as several days ago, Chen Dao had already cultivated a batch of red blood chickens in advance, not only for his own use, but also to pay off his debts. Chapter 175: The person I admire most. Yes, pay off debts. When distributing money to the villagers of Chenjiao village before, a total of more than 200 taels of silver were needed, but Chen Dao did not have that much money, so he had to borrow 100 taels of silver from Chunda. Although Chunda wouldn't mind paying back the 100 taels of silver later, or not at all, Chen Dao still had to pay back the money, so he had already planned to go into the city. And, thinking of going into the city, a hint of murderous intent flashed across Chen Dao's eyes. The owner of Yuan's pharmacy had long been considered a man destined for death by Chen Dao. There were many things to do in this trip to the city, but the most important thing was definitely kill that shopkeeper. Chen Dao turned around and said to Chen Cheng, "Brother Cheng, go inform Uncle and Chen Jiang and the others that we're going into the city tomorrow." "Okay, Brother Dao." Chen Cheng nodded, ran out of Chen Dao's house, and went to inform Chunda and others. Just when Chen Dao was planning to enter the city 2 days later, Chen Go and his group had already set foot on the official road into the city. Walking on the deserted official road, Chen Go looked at the refugees who appeared in his sight from time to time with a vigilant look. Just this morning, Chen Go and he contacted 9 families, collected 20 taels of silver, bought 30 yellow-feathered chickens from Chen Dao and 20 white-feathered chickens from Chunda, and then set off for the county town. Sitting on the donkey cart of the village chief, Chen Go looked at the woods on both sides with a look of vigilance on his face. This time, when he went into the city, he brought along young and strong men from 15 villages, which was considered as sufficient protection. He also had great confidence that he would not be targeted by the bandits. But, no matter how confident they were, no one knew whether those forest bandits would lose their minds and rob them. Therefore, at this moment, Chen Go and many young and strong men were still quite nervous. They stared at the woods on both sides of the official road without blinking, fearing that thieves would jump out from there. Brother Go. In the team, a young and strong man named Chun Sanshur said nervously, "We shouldn't be targeted by thieves, right?" "Shut up." Chen Go glared at the man. At this time, this young man's words would undoubtedly make everyone more nervous. Fortunately, at this time, Chun Jiang smiled and said, "Don't worry, there's nothing to be afraid of those forest bandits. I encountered forest bandits when Dao Guer and the others entered the city before, and guess what happened?" Everyone looked at Chun Jiang, who didn't keep them in suspense, and said directly, "That group of forest bandits was completely killed by Dao Guer. Not a single one survived. Brother Dao is so awesome." The young men couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Chun Dao was undoubtedly the most admired person among the young people in the village. When they heard Chun Jiang talking about Chun Dao, their eyes lit up, and even their fear of thieves receded a lot. Not only Daozher, Chengzher is also very powerful. Chun Jiang continued, "You may not know this, but Chengguer is already a martial artist. Last time, I saw him knock down a knife-wielding thief with just 3 or 2 punches. He even broke the thief's neck with his own hands. He's truly amazing." Sheng Yi. A hint of surprise flashed in Chun Go's eyes. How can Chengguer be so powerful? In Chun Go's opinion, although Chun Sheng was born strong, he had a simple personality and did not seem like such a powerful person at all. Not only Chen Go, but other young and strong people also think so. Chungur is the closest person to Dao Guer in the village. How can he not be awesome? At this point, a hint of envy appeared on Chunjiang's face. I heard that it was Dao Guer who personally helped Chungur become a warrior. This Chungur is really lucky. So, it was brother Dao who helped. Everyone suddenly realized that if Chungur became a warrior himself, no one would be able to accept it. After all, although Chun Sheng was tall and strong, he had a simple personality and did not look like someone who could become a warrior. But if Chun Dao helped, then it makes sense. In the eyes of everyone, Chun Dao, who could provide food for the whole village and give money to the villagers, is a typical example of omnipotence. It is not surprising that he can train Chun Sheng to be a warrior. Only, everyone couldn't help but feel a little envious. To everyone in Xinjia village, warriors are legendary figures, known only in name but never seen in person. However, Chun Sheng was trained by Chun Dao to become a warrior. Everyone couldn't help but think how great it would be if they could also be trained by Chun Dao to become warriors. But Dao Guer also said so. Chun Jiang paused, his face filled with longing. In the future, we will also have the opportunity to become warriors like Chun Guer. What? Chun Go's eyes widened. He looked at Chun Jiang and asked, "Did Brother Dao really say that?" "Certainly." Chun Jiang nodded confidently. "I heard Dao Guer say it himself last time. It can't be wrong." Upon hearing this, the eyes of Chun Go, Chun Sanshi, and others lit up. Even Chun Jiang had the opportunity to become a warrior. So did they also have a chance? In their view, warriors have extremely high status, comparable to aristocrats, and there is no one who doesn't want to be a warrior. "I've decided. I must become a warrior," Chun Go said with a determined look. "As long as we become warriors, we won't have to be so nervous when we enter the city." "That's right. If we could become warriors, those thieves wouldn't even dare to look at us. If you can become a warrior, we won't have to worry about entering the city anymore." Yes. With the dream of becoming warriors, the team finally approached the county town. So many people. Looking at the messy shacks and crowds at the city gate, Chun Go, who was visiting the county town for the first time, couldn't help but sigh. At the same time, the young and strong people who were traveling with them were also looking at the refugees outside the city with puzzled expressions. How come these people live outside the city? A young man murmured with a puzzled look on his face. Why don't they go into town? Others also asked, their minds full of questions. Fortunately, Chun Jiang, who had extensive experience in entering the city, gave them an answer. Most of these people are refugees from Liangzhou. There are too many of them, and the government is afraid that they will disrupt order within the city, so they're blocking them outside. I see. Everyone suddenly realized. At this time, Chun Go frowned again and said, "These refugees are unarmed. Even if we let them into the city, they won't pose any threat, right?" Hearing this, Chun Jiang shook his head and said, "A while ago, refugees rushed into the county town. Not only did they kill all the soldiers defending the city, they also looted and killed people. That night, hundreds of people died in the city. Hundreds of people." Chun Go and the others all widened their eyes, their faces filled with shock. What does it mean that hundreds of people died? You have to know that the entire Chunjia village only has a population of just over 500 people. A single influx of refugees into the city resulted in a death toll equivalent to the entire population of Chunjia village. Chun Go and others couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts, and no longer felt that these refugees were harmless. Chapter 176, Chun Go enters the city. At the north gate of the county town, Zhang He, who had nothing to do, stood at the gate. He did not disturb his brothers who were guarding the city, but just squinted his eyes and watched the situation outside the city. During this period, Zhang He, who had taken 3 blood-feather chickens in a row, had been promoted to a 9th-grade warrior and had some power. However, in the county government, he was still unable to compete with the chief constable and was marginalized by him. Therefore, he had a lot of free time. Whenever he had free time, Zhang He would always appear at the city gate to visit his fellow villagers from Liangzhou outside the city. But at this moment, Zhang He's gaze froze, and he saw a donkey cart slowly approaching him, with a dozen young men sitting on it. This made Zhang He feel a little alert. At the same time, 2 soldiers guarding the city stopped the donkey cart and asked loudly, "Who are you? Where are you from?" "Military master." Chun Jiang, who had a lot of experience in going to the city, immediately stepped forward and said, "We are from Chunjia village and plan to go into the city to sell some poultry." While speaking, Chun Jiang pointed to the chicken coop on the car, saying that he and others went into the city only to sell things and would not threaten the safety of the county. So much. The two soldiers guarding the city couldn't help but look at each other in surprise. There are way too many chickens on this truck, and each one is huge, looking incredibly plump. From Qinjia village? Zhang He, who was standing by, immediately became interested when he heard the name Qinjia village. A thoughtful look flashed across his eyes. He had always wanted to do business in Qinjia village, but he had no way to do so. But when he saw Chun Go and the others, he suddenly felt, maybe there is a way out. This time, it was not Wuhan who brought chickens to sell from Qinjia village, which shows that the business of Qinjia village is not limited to Wuhan, but others can do it too. Then you could do the same. Chun Jiang glanced at Zhang He's uniform and replied, Sir, we are indeed from Qinjia village. Zhang He nodded and suddenly asked, Who is Chun Dao to you? It's my neighbor. Chun Jiang replied that his home was less than 500 meters away from Chun Dao's home, so it was not wrong to say that they were neighbors. You must have bought this chicken from Chun Dao's house, right? Zhang He asked again. Yes. Ugh. Zhang He nodded and said to the two soldiers guarding the city, They are fine. Let them in. As a result, Chun Go and others were able to enter the city. After passing the city gate, Chun Go's eyes suddenly opened up, and he couldn't help but exclaimed, This county town is really prosperous. Not only Chun Go, but other young and strong people in Qinjia village who had never been to the county town were also stunned. After entering the county town, the scene they saw was completely different from what they saw in Qinjia village. Qinjia village is full of wooden houses and the roads are bumpy dirt roads. The ground in the county town is paved with bricks and stones, and most of the buildings are brick houses. Their exquisite styles far surpass those of Qinjia village. In addition, what surprised Shingo and others the most was the bustle of the county town, the pedestrians coming and going, and the dazzling array of shops on the streets, which is a scene that would definitely not be seen in Qinjia village. Isn't it lively? Chun Jiang smiled and said to everyone, When I first came to the city, I was just like a bumpkin. Like you, I was dazzled by the prosperity of the county town and wished I could stay there forever. Hearing this, everyone nodded like chicks pecking at rice. It would indeed be a wonderful thing to live in such a prosperous county town forever. But Chun Jiang changed the subject and said, I understand now. Although this county town looks prosperous, it may not be much better than our village. Brother Jiang, what do you mean by this? Everyone immediately looked puzzled. In their opinion, how could such a prosperous county town be worse than Qinjia village? Because the prosperity of the county town is only superficial. Chun Jiang replied. In fact, there are many people who are hungry in this county town. It's not like our Qinjia village, where every household can have enough to eat. Chingo couldn't help but exclaim, looking at the pedestrians coming and going with full faces. Brother Jiang, are there people in the county who don't have enough to eat? Nonsense. Chun Jiang rolled his eyes and said, The entire Qingzhou region has been hit by a cold snap. Our village has lost its harvest, and the county town is in a terrible state too. Many people are starving. This, Chun Go and others opened their mouths, and their good impression of the county town disappeared in an instant. If they couldn't get enough food in the county town, then it was indeed not as good as Qinjia village. After all, in Qinjia village, they could still have white flour buns for every meal. Okay, let's not talk about this anymore. Chun Jiang ended the topic at the right time and said, Hurry up and go to the East Market to sell the chickens. After saying that, Chun Jiang drove his donkey cart towards the East Market. Not long after, the donkey cart stopped at the street where Chun Dao used to sell white feather chickens. Chun Jiang signaled everyone to take the chicken cages down and put them on the ground. Then the group split into two groups. One group guarded the donkey cart, and the other group sat behind the chicken cages, waiting for customers to come. Brother Go. Chin Sancher sat down next to Chin Go and asked worriedly, We brought so many chickens, can we sell them? Chin Sancher had just observed the situation on this street and found that there were many peddlers like them setting up stalls to sell poultry, but there were very few customers. Therefore, he couldn't help but worry about whether the chicken could be sold. Don't worry. Before Chun Go could say anything, Chun Jiang responded first. This chicken looks so good, it will definitely sell. It doesn't matter if I can't sell it. Chun Go also said, When I bought chickens from Dao Guer's house, Dao Guer told me that this was my first time doing business. If I couldn't sell them, he could take them all back. At most, we would just waste some time and energy. Hearing this, Chen Sancher felt relieved and said with emotion, "Brother Dao is really good to us." Yes, if it weren't for Brother Dao, I would still be hungry. If it weren't for Dao Ger, I don't know how many people in the village would have starved to death or frozen to death during this period. Yeah. Chen Sanchi's words were obviously recognized by everyone. Although these people were not good at expressing their emotions, they all remembered Chun Dao's kindness to the villagers. Therefore, everyone was grateful to Chun Dao from the bottom of their hearts without any hypocrisy. "Your chicken looks good." Just as everyone was sighing, a middle-aged woman stopped in front of their stall, looked at the yellow-feathered and white-feathered chickens in the cages, and asked curiously, "What kind of chickens are these?" "Hello, guest." Seeing a customer coming, Chungo's eyes lit up and he hurriedly explained to the woman, "The white chicken is called the white-feathered chicken, and the yellow chicken is called the yellow-feathered chicken. We caught both of these chickens by chance in the vast mountains. Their meat is delicious. Would you like to have one?" Chapter 177 Earned 10 Taels. The woman nodded repeatedly after hearing this, and she had no doubt that Chungo was lying to her, because she had never seen the chicken in such a shape and form before, so she naturally believed what Chungo said. The appearance of these two types of chickens is indeed, as Chungo said, with bright feathers, either snow white or golden in color. They look very good, even noble. However, although she agreed with Chungo's statement, the woman still asked cautiously, "How much do you want for this chicken?" Before coming, Chungo had probably already thought about the price of white-feathered chickens and yellow-feathered chickens, and without hesitation, he said, "White-feathered chickens are 400 won each, and yellow-feathered chickens are 800 won each." Chungo bought white-feathered chickens from Chun Dao at 250 won and yellow-feathered chickens at 400 won. He could barely make double the money by selling them at 400 won and 800 won respectively. So expensive? The woman murmured that nowadays the gray-feathered chickens in the East Market generally sell for around 200 to 250 won, while the white-feathered chickens sell for 400 won, which is almost twice as expensive as the gray-feathered chickens. The yellow-feathered chickens are even more outrageous, being 4 times more expensive. Such a price difference made the woman unable to accept it for a while. Not expensive, not expensive. Facing the customer, Chungo appeared extremely patient. "Look at the white-feathered chicken, sir. It's much larger than the gray-feathered chicken, and the meat yield is at least twice as much. 400 won per chicken is not expensive at all." The woman nodded subconsciously. The white-feathered chickens were indeed larger than the gray-feathered chickens. Just by observing with the naked eye, it could be seen that the weight of the white-feathered chickens was at least twice that of the gray-feathered chickens. Selling them at twice the price was not outrageous. Only, the woman pointed to the yellow-feathered chicken and said, "I can understand selling a white-feathered chicken for 400 won, but how can this yellow-feathered chicken be sold for 800 won? Although yellow-feathered chickens are larger than white-feathered chickens, they're only slightly larger. From the perspective of meat production, there's no reason for yellow-feathered chickens to be sold at twice the price of white-feathered chickens. Sir, please look at the color of this yellow-feathered chicken." Chungo hurriedly grabbed a yellow-feathered chicken from the chicken coop and said, "This chicken has golden feathers, and it looks rich and noble. It's an extremely rare breed, so it's only natural that it's sold at a higher price." Putting aside other things, after killing the yellow-feathered chicken and eating its meat, making its feathers into decorative objects would be a very prestigious thing. After that, Chungo continued, "Of course, if you think it's too expensive, you can just buy the white-feathered chicken." "All right." The woman pondered for a moment, then asked tentatively, "If I buy a lot, I wonder if it can be cheaper?" Hearing this, Chungo, Chun Jiang, Chun Sancher, and others looked at each other with shining eyes. "How much would you like to buy, sir?" Chungo asked expectantly. "If I can get cheaper, I'm going to buy 3 white-feathered chickens and 3 yellow-feathered chickens." Chungo's eyes lit up when he heard this, but he didn't show his excitement. Instead, he said with a pained look on his face, "If you buy 6, I can give you a discount of 50 coins per piece. 50 cents for one, and 6 together make up 300 cents. The pained look on Chungo's face still reveals some of his true feelings. 300 coins cheaper. The woman counted on her fingers and said happily, "Okay, then give me 3 yellow-feathered chickens and 3 white-feathered chickens." As she spoke, the woman took out a purse, found 4 taels of silver, and handed it to Chungo. "Okay." Chungo accepted the silver with excitement, gave the woman 700 copper coins in change, and then took out 6 chickens from the cage and gave them to the woman. In this way, the money and goods were settled, and the woman left with the chicken. After she left, Chun-go and the others immediately showed excitement on their faces. How much money have we made? Chun Sancher counted on his fingers, but found that he couldn't figure it out at all, so he could only ask Chun-go. A white feathered chicken earns 100 copper coins, and a yellow feathered chicken earns 350 copper coins. Chun-go calculated silently and said with joy, "We earned a full ounce of silver and 350 copper coins." As soon as Chun-go finished speaking, everyone became excited. 1 tael and 3 cents. 6 chickens earn us 1 tael and 3 cents. If we sell all the chickens, won't we make 4 or 5 taels of silver? More than that, we brought 50 chickens in total. If we can sell them all, we can earn at least 10 taels of silver. 10 taels of silver, my God. 10 taels of silver. I've never seen so much money before. Everyone's excitement is understandable. Growing up in Chunjia village, the only way they knew to make money was farming. Farming is not only very profitable, but also depends on fate. It was not until now that people realized that there is more than just farming to make money. There is also business. Moreover, the money you can earn for doing business is much more than farming, and it is also easier. Brother Go, we're going to make a fortune this time. Chun Sancher tried to suppress his cheers as much as possible and said to Chun-go, "We earned a little over 1 tael of silver from 6 chickens. If we can sell all the chickens, I'm afraid we can earn 10 taels of silver." Almost. The excitement on Chun-go's face was also extremely obvious. To be honest, before this deal was completed, Chun-go was a little unsure whether the white-feathered and yellow-feathered chickens could be sold. Fortunately, Wuhan did not lie to him. The people in this city were indeed wealthy. He bought 6 chickens at once, each costing hundreds of coins. In the eyes of Chunjia village villagers like Chun-go, they would never buy a chicken that cost hundreds of coins. Only wealthy city dwellers can afford such expensive chickens. That woman just now must be the cook of a wealthy family. Chun Jiang suppressed his excitement and guessed, only a cook from a wealthy family could be so generous as to buy so many chickens at once. Hearing this, Chun-go was about to say something when 2 more men stood in front of the stall. Chun-go hurried over and said, "Would you like some chickens, sir? Our chickens are a rare breed caught from the Kangmang Mountains, and they taste much better than gray-feathered chickens." "How much is this chicken?" The 2 guests asked. "White-feathered chicken is 401. Yellow-feathered chicken is 801. Come with me, too." The 2 customers didn't even bother to bargain. They just paid and bought 1 white-feathered chicken and 1 yellow-feathered chicken. Another 550 coins in profit. Chun-go, who put the copper coins into his arms, was all smiles. Chun Jiang, Chun Sancher, and other young and strong men from Chunjia village were also smiling. These white-feathered chickens and yellow-feathered chickens seemed to be quite popular among the people in the city. In less than a quarter of an hour, they sold 8 of them. At this rate, they would definitely be able to sell all 50 chickens before sunset. With a profit of 400 coins per yellow-feathered chicken and 250 coins per white-feathered chicken, they can earn at least 10 taels of silver. Chapter 178 Ecstasy. The sales of chickens were pretty much as everyone expected. The brightly colored white and yellow-feathered chickens were very popular among the city dwellers, and scattered customers came to the stalls one after another to check them out. After seeing the chickens, most of the customers took out their money and bought a white-feathered chicken, a yellow-feathered chicken, or 2 or 3. Of course, bargaining is inevitable. After all, not every customer is as unwilling to bargain as the 2 men before. However, even though the profit was reduced due to the customers' bargaining, Chun-go and others still made considerable profits, and the smiles on their faces never faded. Sold out. In the afternoon, when the sun was tilting towards the west, Chun-go patted the chicken coop at his feet. Although his mouth was dry from haggling with customers, he looked extremely excited. Sold all 50 white-feathered and yellow-feathered chickens he brought to the city. Not a single one left. Sold out, huh? The young and strong men around Chun-go all burst into laughter. Chun Sancher looked at Chun-go excitedly and said, "Brother Go, calculate quickly. How much money did we make this time?" "Notarus." Chun-go held the bag of money in his arms, looked around, and said nervously, "Let's get in the car and go back to the village first." Yes, let's go back to the village first." Chun Sancher looked around and realized that the popularity of their stall had attracted the attention of many other peddlers. It might not be safe to stay here. So everyone hurriedly got on the donkey cart, started it without stopping, and headed straight out of the city. The donkey cart successfully left the city and drove slowly on the official road. Chingo looked vigilantly at the woods on both sides, while silently calculating in his mind. He brought a total of 20 white-feathered chickens and 30 yellow-feathered chickens to the city. The white-feathered chickens were sold at an average price of 350 coins, while the yellow-feathered chickens were sold at an average price of 700 coins. Calculated at this price, the profit of a white-feathered chicken is 100 coins per chicken, and the profit of a yellow-feathered chicken is 300 coins. The total profit of 50 chickens is 11 taels of silver. Brothers, Chingo looked at the alert young men. Seeing that everyone's eyes turned to him, he lowered his voice and said, "We earned a total of 11 taels of silver this time." As the words fell, everyone was stunned, and then an expression of ecstasy appeared on their faces. "Brother Go, is there really 11 taels?" Chen Sancher suppressed his excitement and asked in a low voice. The others also stared at Chen Go intently. The moment they saw Chen Go nod in confirmation, a look of ecstasy appeared on everyone's face. "If we earn 11 taels, then each of our families can get 1 tael of silver, right? We're rich. We're rich. 1 ounce of silver. This money is too easy to earn." At this moment, everyone was ecstatic. A profit of 11 taels of silver meant that every household would receive a dividend of more than 1 tael of silver. This is definitely a tremendous fortune for these young and strong people. After all, their parents are farmers who make a living from the land. Even in a bumper year with a good harvest, they cannot earn so much money. And they made so much money just by going to the city. It would have been fine if there had been no comparison, but once the comparison was made, everyone couldn't help but dislike farming. Chingo put his index finger to his lips, silencing them. "Speak softly, or you won't attract thieves." Upon hearing this, everyone immediately fell silent, forcibly suppressing their excitement, and looked vigilantly towards the woods on both sides of the official road. The entrance of Chinjia village. Mr. Chun and Lu Jie stood at the entrance of the village, frequently looking towards the official road in the south. Next to them, there were many middle-aged couples looking forward to it. They were all families with children who followed Chingo into the city. At this moment, everyone had a look of worry on their face. They were afraid that Chingo and others would encounter thieves, and they were also worried that the chickens Chingo and others brought to the city would be difficult to sell. They were very conflicted. You know, it is not an easy thing to make up your mind to take out the 2 taels of silver from your family and do business with Chingo. If this business fails, their 2 taels of silver will be wasted. Brother Sheng, a man, gazing towards the south of the official road, said to Chun Sheng, "Can Go's business really succeed?" "I don't know either," Mr. Chun said helplessly. "This matter is completely handled by Brother Go alone. I don't know the specific situation, but—" Mr. Chun paused and continued, "Seeing that Go is so confident, I think it will probably work." To be honest, although Mr. Chun was willing to give 2 taels of silver to Chun Go to do business, Mr. Chun had no idea whether the business could be successful. In the minds of Mr. Chun and even the villagers of Chinjia village, farming is the only way to really make money, and doing business is unreliable. Fortunately, parents like Mr. Chun are not stubborn. Although they don't think that doing business can make money, they are willing to support their children and let them give it a try. Whether this deal works or not, I just hope my child can come back safely. A woman said with a worried look on her face that her 2 children were in Chingo's team. If Chingo's team was killed by thieves, her family would be really cut off. In fact, the woman was unwilling to let both children go to the city with Chingo, but she had no choice, but the children had their own ideas. Perhaps they wanted to see the prosperity of the county town, or perhaps they yearned for the scenery outside the village. They firmly chose to go into the city with Chingo. Me too. We don't have to worry about food and drink in our village now. I just hope the child can come back safely. Yeah, now that we've finally filled our bellies, these kids, for some unknown reason, insist on going into the city to take risks. The children are grown up now and have their own ideas. We can't stop them. Everyone was talking at once, with a somewhat helpless look on their faces. A small number of them actually didn't want their children to follow Chingo into this business. What a pity. Most of the children in their families have grown up, have their own ideas, and yearn for the colorful world outside the village. They can't be stopped at all. Look, Go and the others are back. But at this moment, a loud shout woke everyone up. Everyone turned to look towards the south of the official road, only to see a team appear at the end of their sight. Although they couldn't see the team's appearance, clearly due to the distance, everyone almost subconsciously determined that this team was Chun Go and his group. Brother Go and the others are back. So everyone became excited and quickly walked towards the direction where the donkey cart was coming. Chapter 179, The Visual Impact of Silver. Dad, Mom, Uncle, Aunt, I Chun Go am back. Chun Go jumped off the donkey cart and headed towards Chun Sheng and the others, his face brimming with pride, his heart filled with 11 taels of silver earned on this trip to the city, making him the highest earner in Qinjia village. Of course, before saying this, we have to exclude Qindao and Qinda first. What nonsense are you talking about? Lu Jia rolled her eyes and slapped Chun Go on the forehead. All her worries disappeared. Just looking at Chun Go's appearance, she knew that they must have encountered no accidents when entering the city. Brother Sure, was your trip into the city okay? Chun Sanchi's mother took his hand and asked with concern. I'm Phoenix. Chun Sanchi laughed immediately and said excitedly, this time we went to the city. Not only did we sell all the chickens, but we also earned 11 taels of silver. What? As soon as Chun Sanchi finished speaking, Chun Sheng and others were all stunned. What is the concept of 11 taels of silver? It is no exaggeration to say that in a peaceful year, 11 taels of silver are enough for a family in Qinjia village to live in prosperity for 3 or 4 years. Even in a disaster year like today, 11 taels of silver is a considerable fortune, enough for a family to have enough food and drink for a year or two. It was precisely because they knew the concept of 11 taels of silver that everyone seemed particularly shocked. Brother Sure, you're not being happy on purpose, are you? Chun Sanchi's mother Deng Qing asked with a dull look in her eyes. She knew that Chun Sanchi was not a child who liked to lie, but she still found it hard to believe that Chun Sanchi and his friends could earn so much money on this trip to the city. Mom, why don't you believe me? Seeing that his mother didn't believe him, Chun Sanchi suddenly became anxious and said directly to Chun Go, Brother Go, quickly take out the money and let them see if we have earned so much money. Hearing this, Chun Go did not hesitate and directly took a cloth bag from the donkey cart and put on the ground. Bite! The cloth bag fell gently to the ground, making a crisp metallic collision sound. Just by listening to the sound, Chun Sheng and others knew that there must be a lot of silver in the bag. Then, Chun Go opened the cloth bag and said proudly, We've sold all the 50 chickens we brought to the city. This is the money from the chickens, a total of 28 taels. Looking at the silver shining in the afterglow of the setting sun, Mr. Chun and others were stunned. However, this was not the end. Chun Go took out a smaller cloth bag and placed it on the ground. This is the 3 taels of silver I had left after buying the chicken from Daoger. The 2 bags together make a total of 31 taels. Silence, still silence. Mr. Chun and the others stared blankly at the silver that Chun Go had placed on the ground, unable to speak for a moment. Taels of silver placed on the ground was undoubtedly extremely strong. The performance of Chun Sheng and others at this time was the best proof of this. They all stared at the silver on the ground in a daze, their brains briefly going into a state of blackout. After a long while, Chun Sheng finally came back to his senses. He looked at Chun Go with shock on his face. Brother Go, did you really earn this money? Certainly. Chun Go puffed out his chest and said proudly, Dad, let me tell you, the people in that city are very rich. They buy chickens for hundreds of coins each without blinking an eye. The 50 chickens we brought are not enough to sell them. Upon hearing this, Mr. Chun and other middle-aged men couldn't help but look at each other with wide eyes. They bought chickens worth hundreds of coins without blinking an eye. Could it be that every person in this city has a gold mine at home? Brother Go, tell me in detail about the situation when we entered the city. Mr. Chun said. No problem. Chun Guba had to brag about his deeds, so he told the whole story of his journey to the city. After hearing this, Mr. Chun and the others couldn't help but look complicated. How could there be such a profitable business in this world? Just by transporting the chickens to the city, you can earn nearly double the price? This business is too easy, isn't it? 11 taels of silver just by going into the city. This money is too easy to come by, isn't it? Chun Sheng and others had expressions of disbelief on their faces. In their opinion, making money is undoubtedly the most difficult thing in the world, but Chun Go earned these 11 taels of silver so easily. which obviously conflicted with their cognition. I think. While everyone was shocked, Lu Jie said thoughtfully, the reason they make this money so easily is not because they are capable, but because of Dao Ger. Brother Dao. Everyone was stunned, and then they suddenly realized. That's right. If Dao Ger hadn't sold chickens to Go Ger at a very low price, Go Ger wouldn't have been able to make money so easily. That's right. The chickens at Dao Ger's house are a unique breed. If they were gray-feathered chickens, they wouldn't sell so well, and there's no way they could be sold for 700 coins each. After all, we still have to thank Dao Ger. If it weren't for Dao Ger, we wouldn't have enough to eat, and Go Ger and the others wouldn't be able to earn so much money. At this moment, there was no need to express in words the gratitude that everyone felt towards Chun Dao. Anyone could do Chun Go's business. After all, transporting chickens into the city did not require any technical skills. But not everyone can have chickens. Only Chun Dao and Chun Da can provide this kind of chickens. Only Chun Dao is willing to sell the precious white-feathered chickens and yellow-feathered chickens to Chun Go and others at a lower price, allowing them to earn so much silver by transporting them into the city. We really have to thank Brother Dao. Chin Sancher said, if it weren't for Dao Ger, how could we have earned so much money? Hearing this, both the young and strong men in the team and Chun Go nodded. To be fair, the greatest credit for them earning these 11 taels of silver must belong to Chun Dao. Of course, Chun Go's contribution is also not small. Chun Sheng looked at Chun Go with praise in his eyes. Brother Go, you did a good job. Anyone can transport chickens into the city, but not everyone has the courage to do it. After all, the thieves who might appear at any time on both sides of the official road are a huge threat. Only someone like Chun Go, who is quick-witted and courageous, would dare to cross the distance of more than 10 miles and go into the city to sell the chickens. Father! Chun Go was obviously very pleased to be praised by his father, but he looked a little embarrassed. I just mustered up the courage to go into the city. It's nothing. Brother Go, stop being so modest. Chun Jiang laughed and said, you have made a great contribution to earning so much money from this chicken. I saw you haggling with those customers all afternoon, and your mouth was dry. To be honest, Chun Jiang was quite impressed by Chun Go, because he thought he could not do something like Chun Go, such as greeting every customer with a smile and bargaining with those customers with a smile for an entire afternoon. The reason why Chun Go was able to make so much profit from selling chickens this time was largely due to his eloquence. Chapter 180 or more. Is Brother Go so powerful? Everyone looked at Chun Go in surprise. The impression of Chun Go in their minds could probably be described in 4 words. Careless. Of course, these 4 words are not derogatory, but describe Chun Go's character. Chun Go is a playful person. When doing farm work, he spends more time playing than doing serious work. Because of this, Chun Go has been spanked countless times by Lu Jie. However, because Chun Go is young and has a sweet mouth, the villagers do not dislike Chun Go. They just can't help but think that Chun Go is not cut out for farming. I didn't expect that the eloquence that has always been considered useless by everyone can actually play such a big role in this transaction. That's right, Go Ger is really good at talking. I saw Go Ger chatting with those customers with my own eyes. If it weren't for Go Ger, this chicken probably wouldn't have sold for so much money. Yeah, Go Ger is really amazing. The other young men nodded in agreement. This time, go to the city to sell chickens basically depended entirely on Chun Go, and they were just doing some heavy work. Chun Sheng and Lu Jie looked at Chun Go with satisfaction, feeling that their son had grown up. As farmers who work in the fields for a living, the two of them have always been worried about Chun Go's future, because it is obvious that Chun Go is not happy with farming. In this era, for ordinary people, farming is almost the only way to have enough food to eat. Fortunately, Chun Go seems to have found his own way. Chun Sheng glanced at the silver on the ground and asked Chun Go, Brother Go, should we use this silver to distribute dividends to the villagers? I don't plan to share dividends for now. Chun Go, who had already made plans, replied, this business is so good. I plan to use this silver to expand my business. Then, when the time comes, we can earn not just 11 taels of silver per trip to the city, but 20 taels, or even 40 or 50 taels. The eyes of the crowd, who were originally unhappy when they heard that Chun Go would not distribute the profits, immediately lit up. Brother Go is right. We shouldn't rush to distribute the dividends. Chun Jiang said, We should take this money and bring more chickens next time we go to the city to make more money. That's right. Brother Jiang is right. We don't need to rush to distribute the dividends. I'll listen to Brother Go and Brother Jiang. Everyone agreed. Whether it was the young and strong people in Chungo's team or their relatives, they all agreed with Chungo's approach without hesitation. They had already seen the profits of this business and naturally were not in a hurry to get the dividends. Instead of taking the dividends early, it would be better to let Chungo use the money to find Chundao to buy more chickens and transport them into the city, and then earn more money. Don't worry, folks. Seeing that everyone agreed, Chungo subconsciously began to make big promises. You trust me, and I will definitely not let you down. Wait for me to help you get rich. When the time comes, I will let you all live like landlords, and marrying 3 or 5 concubines will definitely not be a problem. As Chungo finished speaking, he felt a chill on his neck and saw that the women present, including his mother Lu Jie, were all looking at him with murderous intent. Chungo hurriedly tried to excuse himself. I was just joking, mother and aunts. Don't take it seriously. That's enough. Chun Sheng waved his hand, resolving Chungo's death crisis. It's getting late. Let's go back to the village first. Everyone looked at the sun that was about to set, turned around, and returned to the village. Dad, Mom. After returning the donkey cart to the village chief, Chungo said to Lu Jie and Chun Sheng, you two go back first. I'll go to Dao Guker first. It's time to go to Brother Dao and tell him the good news. Mr. Chen nodded, and without saying much, he separated from Chungo and went home first with Lu Jie. Chungo walked towards Chun Dao's house under the light of the rising moon. Brother Go. At Chun Dao's house, Chun Dao, who had just finished dinner and was stretching in the front yard, looked at Chungo, who had walked in, and said with a smile, should your trip to the city to sell goods go smoothly today? Before Chungo set out, Chun Dao told him that since this was his first time doing business, if he couldn't sell the chickens, he could take them back, and Chun Dao and Chun Dahui would be responsible for buying them back at the original price. Now seeing Chun go with empty hands, it is not difficult to guess that Chungo's trip to the city to sell goods should be going smoothly. It went very smoothly. Chungo replied with a smile. We've sold all the 50 chickens we brought to the city. Thank you, Dao. Are they all sold out? Chun Dao was somewhat surprised. He knew that yellow-feathered chickens and white-feathered chickens were easy to sell, but he didn't know they were so popular. Including the time spent on the road, Chungo and others probably didn't even have an entire afternoon selling goods in the county town, yet they managed to sell 50 chickens. It seems, although there are many people who don't have enough food to eat in this county, there are also many wealthy people. Yes, Brother Dao, you may not know that white-feathered chickens and yellow-feathered chickens are selling very well in the city. Chungo excitedly told Chun Dao about his experience of selling chickens in the city. Chun Dao listened quietly. After listening, Chun Dao nodded and said, very good. After that, Chun Dao asked again, do you have any ideas about going into the city this time? Idea. Chungo frowned unconsciously, thought for a moment, and said, I've realized the importance of reading. Oh, a hint of surprise flashed in Chun Dao's eyes. He just asked casually, but he didn't expect Chungo to give such an answer. I discovered a problem when I was selling chickens. Chungo said, no one on my team can read or do arithmetic. We can't even calculate the profit from selling chickens. Fortunately, I learned some arithmetic from Mr. Lee in the academy. Otherwise, I would probably lose money selling chickens without knowing it. These days, ordinary people can barely read or write, let alone do arithmetic. They can't do it at all. As for the people in Chungo's team, they counted the money 1 coin at a time. It was only because they had Chungo, who had learned some arithmetic, that it would not be easy to calculate the profits from their trip to the city. It was also because of this that Chungo understood why Chun Dao wanted the children in the village to go to school, because without studying, even the simplest business could not be done. This also made Chungo determined to continue studying in school. To be honest, Chungo did not like reading, or it could be said that more than 99% of children in the world have no interest in reading. But now I cannot study. If I don't study, I won't be able to read and do arithmetic. How can I continue this business and make a fortune? I'm glad you think so. Chun Dao nodded with a smile, chatted with Chungo for a few more words, then sent Chungo out of the house, and then returned home to lie down and sleep. Chapter 181 Wonderful Scene. The next day, as soon as the sky was getting light, Chunda, Chun Sheng, Chun Jiang, Chun Si and others appeared outside Chun Dao's house. It's really cold today. While waiting for Chun Dao's family to open the door, Chun Jiang stamped his feet. The weather has become much colder recently. According to the Chinese method, it is close to 0 degrees Celsius. Even a strong guy like Chun Jiang feels a little unbearable in such weather. Fortunately, Chun Jiang touched the clothes on his body and felt a little warm in his heart. These are new clothes made with cloth that his family bought after Chun Dao received his salary a while ago. The warmth-keeping effect of these new clothes was much better than the patched linen clothes he had worn before. This wicked god is really not letting us have an easy life. Chen Si also exhaled a breath of white air. His face looked very unhappy.